right, it is 7:01, and we call this council meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. We're going to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Shelley, will you call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Robinson? Here. Hale?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Sperry?
Here.
And Glover?
Here. Thank you. And Shelley, if I call you Rory at some point tonight, I apologize.
It'll be all right.
Chief Larson, would you like to give our Unified Fire Report?
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Happy to be here. Mayor, I thought about our conversation early this morning, and it's just been one of those days, just hectic, one thing after another, and right in the middle of my focusing to solve an issue, I get a text from my boss, and from time to time I'll share a joke or funny story with him, either personally or in meetings or what have you. So I get this text from my boss right in the middle of just some really busy work, and he says, "Brad, text me one of your funny jokes." And I said, "I'm terribly busy right now. I'll text you later." He responded back, "That's hilarious. Send me another one." So it's kind of how.
Thank you, Chief. For the record, I saw Chief this morning at UFA and told him I hoped he would have a funny joke for you.
He did not disappoint.
So anyway, I don't want to say that really happened, but it might have. Real quickly, before I get into the quarterly report, I just want to give you a quick mile-high view of some of the activities UFA is doing right now. And I think first and foremost, and I'd mention this, we have a new fire chief. The UFA board announced March 15th the selection of Dominic Burchett as the 14th chief of the Unified Fire Authority. We held a swearing-in ceremony on April 2nd at the Jordan Academy for Technology building in Riverton. Chief Burchett brings a lot of extensive experience and operational leadership in fire protection with over a 22-year career with the fire service. He started, well, most recently, I should say, he served as the assistant chief of support services. He was my boss, and he still is my boss, but not my direct boss anymore. I gained a lot of respect for him during that time I was able to work with him. As the Assistant Chief of Support Services, he's been responsible for the daily operations of fire prevention, special enforcement, which is bomb and arson investigations, information technology, and logistics. In addition, he helped lead 5 fire station rebuild projects and a seismic retrofit of all existing stations for UFA. And close to home, he's been involved from the very beginning, the get-go of the build on your new station here, and determining the best location for it in working with your city staff. His career began in '97 with Salt Lake County Wildland Crews alongside his brother and a group of friends. Together they developed a passion for the fire service and quickly began testing for full-time jobs. In 2001, he began Recruit Academy with the Salt Lake County Fire Department before joining UFA as a paramedic in 2007. Throughout his career, he's moved through the ranks as a firefighter, wildland specialist, paramedic, captain, division chief, and in 2020 was promoted to assistant chief of support services. He was born and raised in Utah. Chief Burchett's married with 5 children, holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Utah, and is set to return to school to pursue his master's degree. We're really happy to have him on board. He's already presented us and the board with his 100-day plan, and we look forward to some great things from Chief Burchett. Groundbreaking for the Eagle Mountain Station 251 will be held in April at the site of the new station. The date's to be determined. A recruit class, they're in their 8th week. They've been able to receive training related to medical, origin and cause, and prevention. This coming week, they'll have wildland training. The UFA divisions have been a key component in supporting the development and training of this group. Let's see. Heavy Rescue took a really big lead in training and developing the recruits, helping them with extrication, vehicle extrication. That's where they get to take the jaws of life out and spread the door on a car and do a bunch of other fun things with that. Let's see. I think that's pretty much all we need for the overhead view. What you see in front of you here is the first quarter report for January for Midville. I'll just go over it really quickly. We had 937 total incidents for that quarter, for those 3 months. Emergent, or those are Charlie and Delta calls, usually medical or medics are required, or a fire call. 434 of those were emergent, or 46%. And on the top right, you'll see the 4-year monthly comparison. There was a little bit of a rise in January, but then dropped a little bit in February and March. But overall, it's held pretty steady. The top fire dispatches on the middle left, structure fire 9 and outside rubbish fire 3. Then you see the top EMS dispatches next to that in the middle. And then the other dispatches, the unintentional system detector, that could be a malfunction of the alarm system. Sometimes the guys specifically call that out as a malfunction, and other times you're just not sure why they went off, so they put it in the other category. Malicious, mischievous, false alarm, that's when somebody intentionally does a pull station or something like that. We only had 7 of those. And then on the lower left, you see the incoming unit engine and truck responses. Station 125 and 126, you see the unit responses. Those are engines, ambulances, and any other piece of apparatus. That's not an individual call. That's just the number of apparatus or units that responded. So those Station 125, 126 made up 54 and 41% respectively of the calls within the city limits of Midville. And then you see Cottonwood Heights and others and the percentage that they responded into the city. The top ambulance responses, Station 126, you see that 90% of the time it was within the city of Midville that the station ambulance responded. And then you see Cottonwood Heights and Taylorsville and their responses into the city. The emergent total time, these are again, if you go to the 434 emergent calls, 50% of the time the engines were able to arrive from the minute they were dispatched till they got to the scene in 4 minutes and 40 seconds. That's under the 6 minute goal that we've set. The 90th percentile, what that means is that for the other 50%, so 50% of the time is 4 minutes, 40 seconds. The other 50% of the time, 90% of that, we were able to respond in 7 minutes and 14 seconds or less. Does that make sense? Yeah, it took me a while to kind of understand that concept, but that's what that means. And this just really gives a kind of a quick snapshot. The different colored dots designate the different call types and where they were in the city. And then it has a number beside each of those dots in the lower right to tell you how many times, how many fire calls, for example. It says 24 there. And then this really, to me, it tells a little bit more than this. The heat map here really gives a good indication of where your high-density calls are going and where the low-density calls are going. You see along the 7200 South corridor, there's quite a heavy call density there. And then you can see a couple of pockets up on the east side and the west side, some little heavier density call areas. Any questions on the quarterly report? Okay. One thing I would like to mention, I think is worth noting, is that your area fire marshal Dave Bradley and I were able to visit the road home this morning, and we met Meredith over there, and we walked through for just a general kind of safety, I don't want to say inspection, it was more of a collaborative team effort, just to kind of walk through the safety features of the building and the exiting and those type of things. And I was really impressed with their maintenance of the life safety systems and the exiting of that facility to make sure that the occupants are going to be safe. But more so, I was really impressed with the services that they provide there. She took us through and we asked questions, and it's been a while since I've been through there, and it was good for me to be reminded of the great service that they provide for individuals there and for the community, really. So I was really happy to go through there and see that with her. Sergeant Utley, I'll put a plug in for the police. We ran into him there, and to see him joking back and forth with the staff there and just the relationship he has, and that I know all the officers there have, was just really, really neat to see. He was like a staff member there, you know, joking around and teasing each other, and you could tell they had a lot of confidence and trust in him. And I just thought that was kind of neat to see. The chief let me know too, this Saturday from 10 to 2, there's a drug take-back program at Hillcrest. Yes. Is that right? Where individuals can take their prescription drugs, expired or otherwise, and get them disposed of, no questions asked. I think that's a great program. Really helps with the, I think, the Jordan River, because nothing gets dumped into the sink or anything and flushed into the river. So I think it's a great program, and they're able to dispose of those things properly. So that's the end of my report. Any questions for me? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chief. All right. Next up on our agenda is public comments. Any person wishing to make a comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for public hearing on the agenda may address the City Council at this point by stepping to the microphone and giving his or her name. Do we have any public comments? You can just step forward. Just please give your name when you get to the microphone.
My name is Lorraine Butler, and I live on 7500 South. Indulge me because I had eye surgery this last Monday, so I'm seeing double of you, and there's things that I want to read, and it's not going to look really good. I'm going, okay, I can't see anything. So if I go over time, excuse me, my heart's thumping. About 6 months ago, I told you that I had some schoolwork that I was doing. My report came through, 19 pages of a tourism that I did for Utah because I couldn't find anything for Midvale. I'd love to share it with all of you to see that I'd like you to look at it because I'm pretty excited about it. I got an A. So I thought I was doing pretty good considering that I had to do so much. Anyway, it's made me very much aware of Midvale and the things that we don't have. I want to introduce myself to the mayor, who I have never met. 7 years ago, I had the opportunity of inviting people in my neighborhood and my city to come to a master planning meeting. And there were a lot of participation. And most of the people that are here now weren't part of it then. They're all different. I know 2 council members were there. And I remember going to all of these meetings and being part of the input. And we felt really good about it. I was able to talk to people, and a lot of people came out from the neighborhood. And we made and thought we helped produce a master plan. Unfortunately, when it came out and I was able to get a copy of it, a lot of the suggestions that I thought were going to be there weren't there because we kind of semi-turned it over to a consult, one of those people, consulting firms. I know what I'm trying to say. Like I said, I can't read, but that's okay. And if I may, I reached out to a couple of people. At the time, Leslie Burns was the city planning. Wayne Sharp was on it. Councilman Sperry was there. And he responded in August of 2016 that hopefully, as we look at the updated master plan and areas to rezone, we can improve what is currently in place and minimizing some of the concerns that residents have with future developments in the city. On September 20th, there was a state and I love this word, ombudsman, you know what I'm saying, yes. Anyway, he came out, and it was interesting to listen to what he had to say to all of the council and to the staff and everyone about how the residents felt, that they really should take the concerns of the residents and actually help them and understand what's going on with them. And then Leslie Burns responded to something that I asked, and she said a general plan is a policy document. It does not include numbers for density, buildings, heights, setbacks, or other specific development standards. Zoning ordinances is the regulatory document that does this. So it was kind of interesting that we have a master plan, and some of it talks about the neighborhoods and what we can and can't do and all that other stuff. I was thinking about where you're sitting right now, because it was the bleachers of a baseball field. Both baseball fields are gone. The school took care of the swimming pool. And I know there's things going on someplace in this vast staff that I look around and I don't know anybody, and I don't know whether there's developers behind me, whether there's people that it's almost sometimes I wish there was a development section and a staff section and you had nameplates and I knew who all of you were. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Kennedy has reached out to me at times also. I've seen on the Facebook page about the parking for the new developments coming in, and that it's going to be that they have to provide these things, and it's sad to go past the MOTA. Also, I'm wondering if we have like meter maids or people that give out parking tickets for those that are parking in front of the hydrants all the time. Because over on 3rd West, they're always doing it around the storage units. Like I said, sorry about that. I've been interested about, and I have to have surgery on my other eye next week, so I cannot talk about the development at the Joe Morley's. Councilman Brown is the only one that's going to be basically impacted by that because of all the others that are around. And I know that that the zoning has been amended for setbacks. On the one at 9th East, the setback is really, really almost so close to the road. And I'm concerned about the setbacks, that they be back a little farther. Places to park, we already know about the empty spots in the one on 3rd West. I go by it all the time. You go by it all the time. We know that inside the gated thing there's plenty of empty spaces. I wish there was a way that we could figure out how to get those that own them or built them and then gave them over to somebody else. That's so hard. We talk about parking strips and putting in trees. Main Street's Main Street is a perfect thing of why you don't want that many trees. And it's hard for the city. It's hard for the city to take care of the trees. And it's hard to come up Center Street and see these trees that are all in bloom and they're all over creation. It's difficult. Something called curb appeal when you have a home, that you make the curb appeal good. I've talked about the signs and how they haven't been up. I've appreciated the fact that you'd listened to me. It's just been kind of hard, like I said, when I did this, to see how painfully it is that Midville is a place to sleep. You come and go to work or you go home, but people just come to sleep. And that's what we're providing, is a place to sleep. There's no destination of recreation. We've taken it all away. I got on the computer today looking at Midvale's top spots. Would you like to know where some of the top spots were? Wheeler Farm, which is in Murray. South Redwood Road. I don't know why you'd want to go there. Conservation Park, which is out on 13th West. Bell Canyon. We've got all kinds of canyons in Midvale. I don't know where. I've never heard of Ricochet Canyon. Anybody know where that is? I don't. I've never heard of it. And another one was the Sandy Museum. This is the top spots to come to Midvale. Of course, we did have, we had Union Park, and we had Midvale City Park, and there was one other place that was in Midvale. But I was going, why are these even on this thing that was top spots in in Midvale? We have Top Golf for our top recreation place, which is, I'm glad we have one place we can go. But it's hard to know that the people in this community truly want it to be a community. And sometimes I wonder what Midvale really is, whether it's a community of people or literally whether it's just a destination to come and work or come and sleep. And if it's going to continue like that, we have harvest days, and that's our one celebration. We've tried to do some things on Main Street. And Main Street's really tiny. And I know that you're looking at parking and all that other stuff, but it's really tiny. And I want it to be successful. And I do want to read something that, even if you don't believe that I believe this, change is inevitable, whether we like it or not. Embrace change. Find solutions. Make our community a better place. I'd like to be part of the solution. I'm not always available to be on some of the committees and the community things. I end up more of the time here. I have had these thoughts in my mind for the last 4 months. And by darn, you guys have kept me up at night, and I'm not very happy about it. Because my thoughts and my brain and my mouth don't always work together. And I have spent nights not going to sleep, thinking of all the times that I'd want to come and talk, not just to you guys, but to you and to you, the people I don't know that will be affecting my life. I'd like to know what plans are being made. The one that does the finances, I've seen his things, and it's fascinating. And I hate finances, but it's kind of fun to look at all his charts. That's their life. You, I feel bad for, because you've got another life besides having to read 500 million pages of stuff and legal jargon and all that other fun thing that I can only look at and just go, oh my heck. I just looked at the State Street Corridor Survey. I've already done that. I put my 3 cents worth in. It's going to come back a dime and a half later on. But there's just, parking strips. Make the sidewalks wider and then put like planter boxes or flowering baskets. If you want to identify Midvale, identify them as something, lights or flowers. You've been to Park City or Heber City or things like that. Little communities that make little flower pots, and that they're all along State Street. Well, we've got 3 or 4 corridors that identify Midvale. 9th East, State Street, Center Street, 7200, 78, and we have no identifying marks of Midvale. There's nothing to make us a unified community that I see. And the freeways cut us in half, more than once. And so does tracks. I really do appreciate all the work you do. I'm sorry that I seem to come and complain. But, like I said, I was pretty excited and proud of this.
Lorraine, what's the best way for us to see that?
Here. No. I'd be glad, if you really wanted to see it, I'd be glad to leave it. But I was really excited about it. And I would love to do something. I'd love to be able to say that for my Midvale. I really would. to see there was a fine dining. I'd love to see 7200 redeveloped as the gateway to Midvale. You go east, you go west. Main Street's not the gateway to Midvale. It's nice to have old Midvale, but it doesn't help if they're coming off 72 and going east or west. Because that's our Main Street. That's the identifying mark. And like I said, I appreciate the help. I appreciate your work. I thank you for your patience with me. And now that I'm not seeing double of you too many times, my husband brought me down because I can't drive. But he didn't stay because he's afraid you're going to hurt me. So he went back home and said, you can text me when it's all over with. But I appreciate it. And like I said, if you really did want to see it, it's available, and I will leave it with anybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. Okay, if there are any other public comments.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for all your public service.
And just please
Name's
state- Yep.
Scott Bergman, Midville resident. I live on Colby Lane, 8553 South. Brian, I spoke with you this afternoon. Wanted to talk water. Want to see if we can get proactive with park strips. I have a corner lot, a lot of park strip. Friends of mine, relatives, someone brought this to my attention that Sandy City is doing a great job, and a bunch of other cities being proactive of offering like a park strip removal, and not just concreting them, adding water-wise plants that don't need much water. They're native plants to Utah. Maybe you put stone in there, stuff like that. I'm coming to you to see if, because it sounds like we don't have a program for that, right? Am I correct on that?
I think we do participate
We do?
in the Flip Your Strip program through the,
Yeah, what are they offering?
That's a state program.
This one was,
Can I see that?
yeah, absolutely. This one.
Right, he's a Flip the Strip, not us.
Water Savers.
Thank you.
A landscape company. I'm not saying that we have to use. Residents can do this
Sales
themselves.
doesn't do one, but we,
Yeah, well, the local scapes and that stuff, so I think that's part of the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District.
Yeah.
And so they're the ones that, I mean, for us and for Sandy, they provide the water to, well, maybe not all Sandy, they do to us, right?
They provide water to us, Midville,
Yeah.
so they should be on board.
Keith, or they may know.
Yeah.
So we buy it from them and then sell it. I think Sandy does some similar things. But anyway, they're the kind of the master water district here, and they're the ones providing rebates for Flip the Strip.
Yeah.
So you can go through their program and you can qualify for their rebate if you do water rights. And they've been doing this for years. Yeah. I mean, my dad served on that board for like a decade,
Okay.
and so I think as long as he's been on, they've been doing it. So.
this specific one is not Sandy specific.
I'm just bringing an example. That's what
So I
that is.
think that's the
They
thing,
presented-
Sandy could be promoting it, but it's probably
Yeah.
going back to Jordan Valley Water Conservancy.
Well, I'd love to see Midvale promote something like that.
Is it?
We have a
what-
serious drought.
What is it? I think the last time I looked at it, it was like, they'd give you a rebate of like $1.50 per square foot that you change. Is that what that's saying?
Cash rebate.
Yeah, something like that per square foot, something like that.
Sandy could also do their own.
Yeah, Midvale can do
Yeah,
their
but I don't
own.
think-
Midvale
Yeah,
could
I
be
put-
better. Let's make an example.
Yeah, I believe, Laura, I'm looking at you. I don't know if you're able to speak to this, Laura, our communications director. I know that we've promoted and been a part of local scapes.
Yeah.
I know we were last year. I went through it, but I agree.
You
with
personally
It's
use it for your
70.
residents?
I should give the credit to my wife. She went
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
classes, and we have now flipped our. in the
Yeah, I
process
thought
of
that was
flipping
cool
our-
too, the classes. Correct.
You're right.
Yeah,
I
oh
just-
yeah, come on. Yeah.
I just looked under the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. It's the residential customers in their member agencies, which we are one of, $1 per square foot. So that's-
$1?
Yeah, so I think that advertisement is this program, which everybody in Midvale can already take advantage of.
So what we're saying is we're doing this, we just are not,
We may be able
we
to
just-
advertise it better,
We should add it.
but you qualify.
Well,
Yeah.
I knew we did the Flip the Strip, I just didn't know if Sandy had an additional, because cities will do that. They'll put their own program together outside of that. I do know that they require it to be permeable or semi-permeable, right? You can't just pave it. Water has to flow through it and stuff, which is fine. I think that looks better. I'm looking at their website now for the first time, and I do like how they present it. We should maybe copy that, mirror that, because it looks like Sandy's doing it, but it all leads to the Utah Water Savers or the Flip Your Strip situation.
If you go to their program, they give you $1.25 per square foot,
Yeah,
so you can increase it.
okay.
So I think, I'm not sure who you spoke to, but I do think that we could definitely provide, as has been said, we can definitely share more information amongst our staff, so if people ask about it, that we can make sure that they're aware to tell you and others about this program.
Yeah.
And then we can also have a discussion about if we can promote that. But I think that, anyway, it is a good program.
Well, and in addition to just the residential, I mean, you can go to the, HOAs, apartment complexes, they have programs for the multifamily developments that they can provide, and especially developers. Chris isn't here, but Nate, as developers do it, they can tie into these rebates, and if they do water-wise, I think they can get a rebate back.
Yeah.
I'll just add, I think your point's well received. Again, having gone through this, again, credit to my wife, going through this last year, though I know it was also confusing for us, trying to get information, making sure that we were doing it appropriately.
Yeah.
And I think there is this, maybe a breakdown in communication of something that not necessarily Midville is offering and other entity is offering. So when we get calls about it, I think sometimes confusion are there. So as our city manager said, making sure that staff know about it and promote it more.
Yeah, maybe, can we put something like that on the website, somewhere that gives you a lead, where to go, what you do, funds available. We have a lot of park strip here in Midvale. My whole neighborhood's a park strip. Poor design, we should have thought of that a long time ago, because it's not an old neighborhood. Yeah, that's all I'm looking for, something that show the community, share that knowledge and promote it. That is a lot of wasted water.
But if
That's
you go
not
to
needed.
Sandy's incentive page, I think every single one of them applies to us as well. So if you want to see it and where to link now, that would be a good place for you to start, but it would be a good place for us to start as well to improve our visibility.
Yeah, let's do Midvale. I don't live in Sandy.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
One thing too, when we're putting in new sidewalks and stuff, we are not putting strips in anymore. We put the sidewalk right next to the
Good,
curb and
yes.
gutter. I know
That's good
that
to hear.
in my area, that's what they've done,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I'm just sharing, like, I see so much of that. You know, I'm not a native to Utah. I came from northeast Pennsylvania where it rains every other day. Water's not a concern there. We'll give it away there.
Yeah,
Here.
I grew up in Jersey, so yeah.
There you go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And hey, I love my landscape. I want it to look nice. I water it. This year I'm not going to. I'm looking at more of concrete landscape. Bigger driveway, second driveway, stuff like that. But would like to help let's get rid of those park strips. The other question would be with turf. Would turf be acceptable? Then you don't have to water at all.
Yeah.
Meaning
For the park.
artificial.
Artificial, yes. Artificial turf. If you were to put that in your park strip, I don't know much about that either, but it looks
Nate,
real.
do you know what that standard is right off? I don't know.
what it is right off the top of my head.
Okay.
I know that we can put xeriscaping and that kind of stuff in, but what I haven't had to discuss the idea of putting in artificial turf
Okay.
in that area.
All right.
But
Well, I
we
thank you for your time.
We can
I'll-
find that out and
Yeah,
get back to you.
that'd be excellent. Who shall I call? Or someone want to call me?
Maybe when you're done, Nate, will you?
The sign-up form outside
Oh,
as well. So right outside the door, there's a sign-in form.
Okay.
And so I've got your name here, and we can make sure that if you put down your name, recognize that it was you and get that information. to
Very
you.
good. All right, good. Well, I appreciate all your time. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thanks, Scott.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
Hello, my name's Diane Young, and I'm a small business owner, and I just want to be more involved with your fee scheduling. My My business license went from like $69 to over $500, and I am a very small business owner, but I fall under the umbrella of health. I'm a nurse practitioner. I have been trying to contact your office. I've come down. This is the second time today I came down. It seems like I feel like I wasn't really informed of this massive increase, and so I want to be more involved in that and be able to come to those planning meetings. Small businesses, we are the backbone of this country, and I'm a tiny business, but I someday might be a bigger business. But as one person subleasing an office and having my business license going almost to $600, because there was also an administrative fee of $19 and $30. Anyway, I was kind of taken by surprise and shocked, and then trying to call and have it go to a number that no one answered, and not getting anyone getting back with me. The last email I sent, they said 2 weeks ago they were going to let me know, what they could do about that fee, how it was structured, if there was any other nurse practitioners that they knew of. So I provide a service, and I bring people to the community, and I pay to have a business here, and you guys want businesses here, I would imagine. And I do want to say, Mayor Stevenson, the Main Street does look really good. It reminds me of the small town I grew up in, and it was looking very derelict a couple years ago when I was looking at buildings and looking to move here. So I remember saying to my son, why don't I move here? And he goes, oh no, Mom, that looks like you're going to get mugged. Someone will be mugged there. No, but it looks lovely. You've done a great job, and I appreciate that. I just feel like I would like a little more heads up. They just threw something online, and they did some apology. Oh, we did a big fee structure change. But having this big umbrella, if I was an escort, I could pay $130 for the year. I'm a professional small business, but I get feed for everything, from the state of Utah all the way down, my DEA license, everything I pay. But I was just a little shocked on that. So I'd like to know how I can get more involved and how we can do a better job of giving us a heads up before we have that 500% increase. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was contacted about this. I don't know, did you talk to Derek Brown?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's been really hard because people, they're working remotely today, or you need to email this person, or we don't work on Fridays. I'm like, what is going on? I don't know what the schedule is. And when I said, well, maybe I can speak with the mayor for 5 minutes, they're like, oh, he's not here today. I don't know when anyone's working. I just need to be able to resolve things a little quicker. I mean, my goodness, it's the middle of April,
Okay.
but.
Well, I just asked because I was contacted by somebody else. It wasn't his business, but it's somebody he works with, and about this same thing. And I think I reached out to.
It was just a huge increase, and I understand increase. I just would have liked to have had.
Well, I think what it was, at least in that instance, because it was in a similar field, and I think when you guys would look back, there were some businesses that had been
That's right.
mischaracterized or categorized, and so we were correcting it. So.
Right, so the fee schedule has not changed or at least as it pertains to the business licenses in quite some time. We're actually going through right now, as we've been talking about, having a fee study done. We hope to have that done so that with the budget, when we update the fee schedule, that we can have that updated. But what had happened is that there were some, as we discussed previously, is that there were a number of businesses that had not been charged the actual business license amount that has been in our schedule. And we did have to send out some notices and apologies to folks when we started charging them the actual amount. So for a number of years, those businesses were charging something substantially less than what the.
So how many years would you say? Because I've been here 3 years.
The fee study was done in 2016, so.
Okay, so it would have been. So but even when I first came for my business license, you guys need to know it was chaotic. No one was in the position. They were in between people. No one knew what to do. I mean, I've had to come physically down here every time, but I mean, I would like to be able to make it a little more seamless, but not just here's this blurb. I don't know. I feel like when you've already been a business, you need to have at least even a letter, something, before I get a demand letter saying, now your fee is this. So.
That's understandable, and I will definitely have some conversations to see what the issue was with the communication. We haven't been hearing as much of that, and I'm sorry that that had happened, but
Well, my
we'll definitely check to
colleagues
make sure.
in other neighboring cities are not paying anywhere near that much. I mean, I am 3 days a week. I sublease an area. I'm working 2 jobs, you guys, just to keep myself going. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, are there any other public comments? All right, Shelley, did we have any online public comments? All right, moving on to council reports. Councilmember Bell.
Thank you, Mayor Stevenson. In the interest of brevity, I can't say that word. Just want to mention 2 things real quick. We got to attend the Canyon School District Foundation fundraiser last week with you, Mayor, and City Manager Dahl as well. There might be some photos online that might be used as blackmail in the future of us dressed cowboy-like. But it was a fun event. Very important, that is how they raise a lot of money for their scholarship program. So it was great that Midvale had a table at that event, and I apologize for my cowboy attire. Also, this morning I was a little bit perturbed to wake up at 7:30 a.m. to the sound of a bulldozer ripping out concrete in the middle of Bingham Junction Boulevard. I've talked to you, Matt, City Manager Dahl, and City Engineer Ludwig. It's just a little concerning to me. There's about an entire city block of vegetation that was put in, probably, less than 2 years ago, but most likely
3 or 4 years ago.
Okay. Interesting. Well, anyway, so all of that's been ripped out as of today, including trees, vegetation, and from what I understand, that is so that a turning lane can go in to benefit the Zions Bank headquarters building. So I think one of the unique parts about the Bingham Junction build-out was that section of median strip with vegetation and trees and everything, and to have that ripped out for a turning lane. We have plenty of turning lanes in Midvale. We don't have that kind of plaza feel of vegetation and a dedicated median separating north and southbound lanes. So I would just like to be more aware of those types of modifications when we get those. They come to us, with a modification of the plan, of the master plan, whatever, small area plan, whatever they come for. But, just to say, I would like more detail to say, because I never would have voted yes of ripping that out. Number one, it doesn't make sense if we're subsidizing through tax increment this project. It doesn't make sense to have them put in something like that just to dig it up 3 years later. And then, we're subsidizing the next project as well. So not only did we subsidize through tax increment the plaza, but now we've subsidized them ripping it up and putting in the turning lane as well. So it was very disappointing. It is one of those things, the people who live where I live, we kind of like that we could look out and see, there's a 4-lane road, but there's also, a plaza with plants and trees. And it's also just a shame that, Public Works had to salvage some of the trees that were, just going to go who knows where. So it's very poor planning as far as I'm concerned. Not that the city did any sort of poor planning, but I think we, the council, could have been more informed of that's the plan. The plan was not just to put this dedicated turning lane in for binary way, but also to rip out the plants and vegetation and dedicated median strip that already existed. So if we could get more information like that whenever we get those, the amendments to the development plans, I think that would be helpful to us to make better decisions. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo Dustin's last point, and to me it feels a little sort of bait and switchy. We're having this big master planned area that's supposed to have, planter boxes and look more than just a bunch of apartments, right? Now we have just 4 lanes and a turning lane, which just looks like Center Street, right? Which it's one of the ugliest streets, I think, in Midvale is Center Street, right? It's the widest street that's underused. And now we just have that again, right? When we're tearing out things for turning lanes. So I'm disappointed that we're just losing any uniqueness to the area by it. So we definitely need to push back on them for things like this in the future, because it's really, it's not unique. We have white apartment buildings, right? Like, and half bike lanes that people park semi-trucks in. And so it's generally just not looking anything like what we were sold. And I'm afraid that the park is just going to go that way. It's just going to be a one long strip of grass with nothing in it, you know. And, you know, so we need to keep keep their thumbs to the screws, or whatever that expression is, because it's not really fair to us when a lot of citizens didn't necessarily like it. We try to pay into this vision that it's more than just, cheaper looking apartments, and we've lost it, and we're already losing. So let's try not to have that happen again. Or if that means we need to update the tax increment to be, stricter or whatever, but that's why I was very clear that it needed to have things like solar and whatnot, because at the end of the day, they're just taking our money and doing what they want. So it is a little frustrating. On that note, I only have a couple things I want to talk about. I went to Career Day for Midvale Elementary. It was a fun experience. It's very humbling to go to a bunch of third graders and tell them I'm an attorney, because that is very not cool and very boring. But it was fun. My favorite questions I received were, at the end I saved time for questions, and I said, anyone have any questions? And the first question I got was, when are you not going to be boring? When are you going to say something not boring? And that was fun. And then the next kid asked me how expensive my shoes were. So the reason why I bring it up and discuss it is because I want to say I fully appreciate our teachers. While I was there for 15 minutes, like trying to get these 20 kids to listen to me talk for 10 minutes was an act. It was harder than trying to pass legislation up here, I feel like. And they get a very big disservice from our current legislators, and it's sad to see. But I do also want to mention that we're also changing drastically. Our kindergarten class that I went to, they combined 2, so there's about 40 kids, and 6 of them speak Arabic at home, right? So we think our minority population is, a lot of Hispanic, which is true. There was quite a few in there that Spanish was their home language, but there's plenty of other languages there. And I think that speaks to the change that we'll see in Midvale. And I think it's great. And I hope they feel welcome. It was pretty cool for me to practice the little bit of Arabic I know with these six kids, but it was fun, and I appreciate the time. And I recommend anyone volunteering for a half hour at an elementary school if you want to know what it's like to be a teacher. The second thing I just want to mention is Governor Cox has signaled, it seems like, that there will be a state of emergency for water, right? Already, coming up in the next few weeks, opposed to, when was it last year? End of June, right? So that means, I'm guessing, citizens will have some responsibilities, but they'll probably also push stuff down to the city. And I want to be a city that's on top of it. So if he comes out with, you got to do this or that, or like, I don't want to be the last city to comply with that, because even though I think it's false, if I say on Facebook, hey, you shouldn't be watering today, the first thing they all say is, was the city watering, right? And the city, I don't think, has turned on, water to the park to the same level that I've seen, like, those Wasatch Apartments, that 5-story, the day it was snowing, they had their sprinklers on, which I thought was really impressive that they decided to do that. And, we need to be better global or citizens of this state, and because it's coming, And that, if there's a drought, that might mean we have other firework restrictions. I just want to make sure we're on top of it and paying attention.
Just to add to that, the Jordan Valley annual board meeting is coming up on the 27th, so we will get a good report there of our water outlook. Keith last week attended a drought contingency committee meeting with Jordan Valley. So we're on it. Opinion, I think that the water shortage is going to be for the irrigators and in the small communities, and I think that that's the governor's push. But we will be on it, and we are ahead of things. We have, in case you do get calls, we have started watering Adams Street Park more as a test, and two, we've had to do some regrading and things, and we're trying to bring some seed in. So that is the reason if you get calls on Adams Street Park, the sprinklers are running, that there's a method to why.
And it would be nice to know, thank you for that. It would be nice to know if that flip the strip or whatever applies to commercial, and if we could do a campaign out, right? Because like Zion's Bank on Center Street has a lawn the size of my lawn that literally no one uses, that they water every night, right? So if we could do a campaign like, hey, you guys need to, at least the park strip, you know, that would be great if we could do that.
As right now, the program looks like it's just for residential. I'll look to see if there's a separate program for commercial. But
They do have a commercial program. I'm helping business through it right now.
Okay.
But we can do more communication on that.
We just need to push and push and push, because if they're already signaling for it, it seems really early, you know, that Spencer Cox is already, you know, saying, we're gonna do a state of emergency. So, that's all. My very short.
also have seen, we have looked at our consumption numbers for water for the last year, and there was some significant declines in usage. You know, not sure how much of that, all of the causes for that were, but it just a lot less water was used last year than the prior year. And anyways, we're tracking that because of the rate increase that we did last year and trying to see how that all comes together. We're continuing to work on that data, and we'll have some more information on that in the future.
Because if we took a drastic drop, that's actually bad for a budget, but good for literally everything else.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Robinson.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glover.
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember Sperry.
Yeah, just thank you, Mayor, and Lisa for going with me last week to the Canyon School District Peer Court. I thought it was interesting to see what their process is, and you know, if it's something that we can do to benefit Midvale. I think we can talk about that. I know there's some complexities of establishing that, but you know, to give the youth in our city an avenue to address their issues there rather than in juvenile court, I think you know, could be a good option for them. So that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. For my report, just one thing, getting really excited about harvest days. At this point, all of the committee applicants, all of those interviews are done. We, of course, have our potential chair here tonight. So by tomorrow, that committee will be assembled. That's the plan. Go ahead, Matt.
I have nothing this evening.
All right, community development / RDA report. Nate.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the first time I've ever done a PowerPoint for my director's report, by the way. Took 2 years. 3 slides here. This is just so that I don't forget.
You don't have to share everything.
I don't forget people's names or anything like that. 3 things that I wanted to update.
He's really excited.
Update you on is State Street. We did have the open house for State Street on April 12th. I'm told that it was a good turnout. That's the first open house that I've been to because of COVID here in Midvale. So, and then there is the survey online, so encourage people to take that survey. I think it is going good. And that next bullet point should not be there. It should have been disappeared, so ignore that. It makes no sense in the context of here. So some of the goals for the State Street study that I just wanted to highlight. Part of it is really about the strategy of State Street staying up to par with the surrounding neighborhoods as you drive up and down. I think Some cities have done different strategies on how to keep State Street either revitalized or changing. That doesn't mean it has to all match, I think, but I think we want to continue to have new ideas about how State Street can work better or could serve those businesses better. And I don't think we want to be a sore spot of State Street in the Salt Lake Valley. And so that's one of the strategies. The other one is really have put a big, strong focus that there's a lot of public engagement. So we're trying to see how we can get the public engaged. And I've told the consultant, try as many different ways as possible, and let's really track that, because I think we want to use things that happen good, that actually work for other engagement, and then things that just don't seem to work, I think we could maybe move away from. And then another big thing that I want to come out of the State Street study is this idea, ideas and strategies on how neighborhoods integrate with State Street. And I think as we develop those ideas, we can use those in other areas of city planning. Because as these businesses have developed on State Street, and the State Street is very busy, what tends to happen is those neighborhoods that are just a half a block away tend to want to wall themselves off from State Street. And I think as we look at what, there's streets like this all over the country, and as we look at what other cities have done to try to make it so it's not just a wall and then this corridor of activity that maybe you don't want to come into the neighborhoods, that maybe we look at some strategies on how we get those to integrate better, and maybe that will give us some clues on how we change our zoning code, because we do have a lot of industrial areas that are right up against single-family neighborhoods. So we have a lot of developing, high-density areas that are right up against those neighborhoods, and so finding strategies to make it so that, to the extent possible, that they could integrate and that they could make sense sharing those spaces. We want to see those strategies and see how they work, if they work, and how we could potentially use them, not just on State Street, but in other areas of the city. A couple of things that I just wanted to let you know, the council know about. We're always applying for grants. One of the grants that we received through UDOT and WFRC is a TPA grant. And this one is called the Midvale Historic Main Street Urban Design Project. And we received $150,000 from that. With that, the RDA will be matching $65,000, so $215,000, really looking at Main Street. And I've got several bullet points that there's a whole bunch of different elements that they'll be looking at. They'll be looking at lighting, not just street lighting, but street lighting, consistent street lighting up and down the street that makes sense for there. And then also the festival lighting, which you're seeing on the right. Obviously, that's from Colorado. And then designs for streetscape. What this isn't necessarily going to be is us redesigning the entire street. It's really going to be design elements that, as developers come in, then we suggest these are the types of design elements that we want to see on the main street, so that we have a consistent feel, but we also have a little bit of a different feel from development to development. So it does have its own unique character, but there's not these huge swings. You're not going from very modern to Wild West to 1950s Main Street. So and then also within that, including how park strips would work, how bulb outs would work, how outdoor dining areas should work, design concepts in terms of wayfinding so that people know how to find Main Street, know where to park on Main Street, and then as well as a comprehensive parking strategy. I've shown you before sort of our land acquisition strategy and how we want to park those. This will really be refining that strategy so that we understand how that's going to work, how that's going to manage, if there's any holes in that concept, what those are. Making it pedestrian friendly and then event capable, meaning when we want to close it down and turn it into events, or there are certain things that we should design into it so that that's much easier to do from either a safety standpoint or from an activation standpoint. And then some additional elements that can highlight Main Street, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, where we talked about the north end having art and having the food truck plaza. What other elements can we do like that down at the south end, or even out just away from Main Street, that kind of let people know that it's here and start, sort of notifying people that they're coming into an area that we see as special. So we're excited about that grant. We'll continue to work the scope on that. The other one, we just got word of this actually today, is another technical planning assistant, same thing, TPA grant from UDOT. And this one is very similar to the State Street study that we're doing, but we wanted to do a corridor study on Fort Union and 7200 South. So it's that same sort of thing we're doing for State Street. The scope will be changed and will be very specific for the corridor that we're looking at, address different problems. But we do recognize State, 7200 South, and Fort Union, and Main Street as huge corridors and areas that people coming into Main Street or into Midvale identify with Midvale. So we're excited about that study, and we'll just keep moving along on these studies. Those are the only items that I had for the update today.
Any questions for Nate?
Nate, do you know how much, just for the 7,200 survey, how much control do we have over the traffic lights on 7,200? One thing I've heard from multiple residents and just a general observation myself is that the lights are very poorly timed, so that if you're driving down Fort Union Boulevard, you can, stop at 3 or 4 different red lights, sometimes when there's not even a whole lot of traffic. I think that's something maybe we could look into to see if we're able to control that timing a little bit better.
Yeah, and I know that UDOT works with people to help coordinate that timing, so that's something certainly that Keith and I can look into and see what.
Because I think on Bingham Junction Boulevard, even though there's just as many lights in a smaller area, they're timed a little bit better. Especially when there's not a lot of traffic, they have different sensors, I believe, that will trigger a green light so that even if you do stop, you're only there for a second or two.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our public hearing. We just have one for the evening. Consider proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget for the general fund and other funds as necessary. Before we go into the staff presentation, is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Mayor, I motion we go into public hearing.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, we are in the public hearing. Go ahead, Mariah.
Yeah, this is the same information I presented to you last meeting, just moving salaries and benefits from one department into another. It doesn't have any net change on the general fund to move GIS from IT to engineering. And then, as you approved last time, the purchase of meters and other water supplies in this fiscal year from next fiscal year's budget, so using fund balance for that currently. And that's all there is.
Questions, discussion from council? Okay, this item is now open for public hearing. Are there any public comments on this item?
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a
Second?
Okay, motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, any against? Okay, that motion passes. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2022-R-15, approving amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget for the general fund and other funds as necessary.
Second.
Any discussion? Shelley, will you call roll?
Councilmember Gettle,
Yes.
Sperry,
Aye.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Brown?
Yes.
That passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. 2 items. Consider minutes of April 5th, 2022, and set date and time, May 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. for a public hearing to receive public comments and consider adoption of the Midvale City tentative budget beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Mayor, I motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Second?
Any discussion? Shelley, will you call roll?
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Gettle?
Yes.
Sperry?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Thank you, that passes. Okay, moving on to our first action item. Consider resolution number 2022 R16, adopting task order number 141.47.100 with Hanson Allen and Luce for the design and construction management services for 2022 pipeline replacement. Keith.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. 2 weeks ago, our public utilities manager, Curtis Nielsen, brought a discussion item talking about our next water project. This is an ongoing effort we've done for many years in effort to replace and upsize old and undersized or maintenance intensive water lines. The 2 lines that were selected are a 6 and an 8 inch line in Center Street between the tracks line and State Street, and then the line running down High Tech Drive from about 7200 South to our north border. The intent, like I said, is to consistently, methodically go through and replace these old and aging and undersized lines. The plan is to use the capital improvement budget in the public utilities fund for fiscal year 22 and 23, which will give us roughly $1 million, not roughly. Based on some information we received from our consultant, we've looked at this project to cost about $800,000, leaving us a couple $100,000 for design and contingency. We've reached out to Hanson Allen Luce, had them take a look at it, and they've given us a task order to do the design work and also the construction management work. Their total task order came to $140,280. $55,870 of that is tied up in design, and $84,400 is in construction management. So that falls within that 200,000-ish. We were looking for that. As I said, you discussed this a couple weeks ago. I prepared a resolution for your consideration that would authorize the mayor to enter into or to sign this task order with Hanson Allen Luce. Our intent would be, once that's signed, to turn them loose on the design work of it, and then get it out to bid and have it completed by the end of the fiscal year, which would be June 30th of 2023. Any questions?
Sorry, you just said completed by June 2023?
Right.
Is that right?
Like I said, we'd like to get design work done and get it bid. That would give them some time this fall, over the winter, and then all of next spring and summer to get the work done. We found that the more flexibility we're able to give contractors, usually the better price we have. Also with supply issues, gives them plenty of time to get stuff ordered and lined up. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Keith. All right, is there a motion on resolution number 2022 R16?
Yeah, Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 2022-R-16, authorizing the mayor to sign task order number 141-4.47.100 with Hanson Allen and Luce for the design and construction management services for the Center Street and High Tech Drive water line replacement project.
Second.
Any discussion? Shelley, we call roll.
Councilmember Sperry?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Robinson? Aye. Brown?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
That passes. All right, item B, consideration and approval of resolution number 2022 R17, confirming the appointment of Molly Signoretti as the chair of the Harvest Days Festival Committee.
So just real quick, just as a quick reminder, we, back in March, established a new policy regarding Harvest Days and the establishment of a Harvest Days Committee. As part of that, we indicated that there would be a 5-member board that the mayor would appoint, and then a chair that the mayor would appoint, but the council would confirm. As part of that process, the mayor interviewed a number of people and for the position and has made this appointment. That's just a quick reminder of how we got to here and what the process is. But with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor to speak about his appointment.
Sure. So just a little quick background on Molly. It's been interesting going through these interview process and really finding a mixture of residents who, longtime residents and newer residents, and trying to make sure we've got a good mix of that on the committee. Molly is a newer resident who's been here for just a couple of years now, I believe. But she's got some great professional experience working with government agencies. This was one of the things. She's got a passion for event planning, which I think will be really helpful as we plan Harvest Days, but also has knowledge of how to work with government agencies as we have to follow many rules as we go about this. I think that Molly will be really great at bringing a different perspective. I think she's got some great ideas for Harvest Days. And with that, Molly, do you want to give us some quick background on you and then take some questions from the council?
Absolutely. So my name is Molly Signoretti. I moved to Midvale almost exactly 2 years ago. My husband and I moved to Utah about 5 years ago when I got into the U for graduate school, and we fell in love and never left. The plan was to come for 2 years and then assess, and we have never left. But when we were looking for a house, we wanted a smaller community, something where, when we have a family, we both grew up in communities where you can run down the street and, see everyone that you know, and that was something that drew us to the neighborhood. We live just near Marcus, and we just had a son last year who turns 1 this week, and we are very excited to be where we're at. I work for the Salt Lake County Health Department. I'm a program coordinator for our chronic disease and prevention programs. So that's where the coordination part comes in. So I'm super excited about Harvest Days. I have done a lot of event planning all through my professional career and personal career, so love that. And I am, if you've seen me on the street, I'm probably running somewhere in Midvale. I am a super avid distance runner and cyclist, so I am usually out and about on the street. So if you ever see me just running down the street, wave, stop me. I'd love to say hi. Not with your car, though. Please, don't run me over. That's been, an issue everywhere. So something fun that I love to do. So do you have any questions for me?
You said you're over by Marcus?
Yep, I live on Grant
She's on
Street.
Grant.
Oh, so you'll see the parade very clearly.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
last year it drove, right in front of us. It was great. Everyone was out in the street, so
Sorry
super
if
fun.
we hit you with candy.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes.
Hit me
when
with candy, yes.
I'm on Coolidge, so,
Okay.
I'm not too far either. But it is a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
where my kids are always running around, so.
Yes,
We're
we
excited.
are directly across the street from the little free library.
Okay.
If
I
that's
know
like a
exactly
good
where you're at. yeah.
point. Yeah, so fun place to be.
Cool.
Questions for Molly?
Do you have a vision for what you want to happen?
Something that I think is really important is inclusivity and diversity when planning. So I think it's something that's important, whether it be, the events or the food, that it's inclusive of everyone that lives here. So I would say that my vision is inclusivity and including residents from every walk of life and making events possible for everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move that I'm looking for the motion. Here we go. I move to approve Resolution 2022 R17, confirming Mayor Stevenson's appointment of Molly Signoretti. Is that correct?
but
All right,
you're-
Molly
you're-
Signoretti to serve as the chair of the Harvest Days Festival Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? Shelley, we call roll?
Councilmember Glover?
Aye.
Robinson? Aye. Brown?
Yes.
Gettle?
Yes.
And Sperry.
Aye.
Awesome. Thank
That
you.
passes. Thank you so much, Molly. All right, moving on to item C, consider and select a list of final names to submit to the public for consideration for the official name of the new Midville Fire Station, number 125. Before we get started on this, my opinion on how we go about this, I'd be happy to have a conversation generally on the names that we have. But then from there, having every council member put forward their top 3 names, and we'll tally that up. Ideally, we get anywhere from 3 to 5 names for public consideration. I imagine as we each submit, as every council member submits 3 names forward, there'll be some overlap. But we're looking for 3 to 5, and so that's kind of my general thinking now, but Laura, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, tonight we're discussing the Midvale Fire Station number 125 naming. As you know, the station is currently located on Holden Street and it's moving to Center Street. This is a cool overhead photo that they have on their website, on the UFA's website, that I wanted to share. We did a survey on Engage Midvale to try to solicit input from residents on naming ideas, and we received some great names that I want to share with you, and they are Leo Clyde Canning. This was submitted because Chief Canning was a Midvale Fire Department employee for 51 years and was the chief for 46 years. Started as a volunteer firefighter at the age of 6. The person who submitted this, they found this specifically in the. It's really cool that they did some research. It's literally located. We'll get people to vote one way or another. McFireface. One could come up with legacy. Here, a local businessman and big backer of baseball. He was one of the first leaders in the community and was instrumental in naming former Mayor Sagini, joined Midvale Fire Station and UFA Sagini Station. I'm not going to read here. Midvale Center has been around since the city was founded. And rescue, it's as a city, I think we should the name to show Midvale Center, Midvale Memorial Station, fire department, and they who have served in and all the passed on. Do you know what? I'll just. Midvale is in the center of Monson. The Monsons have been serving Midvale for years and stayed true through the merger with UFA. Old Library Station. This was the site of the original Salt Lake County Library, and this person spent many hours. Old Town Midvale Fire Station. While it isn't on 7th, it's just around the corner. It will be a new station integrated within the historic area. And then the last one was Robert Hale Fire Station. Mayor Hale dedicated a lot of time and effort to both Midvale City and Unified Fire Authority. I think that our community really came up with some exciting names, and I'm excited to share these with you and to see what you think. Thank you.
As a reminder, a couple of months ago, Unified Fire Authority had asked us to name our fire station. Part of Midvale going through this is a little bit of a guinea pig. We'll be the first to go through a public naming process with our fire station opening in August, and I trust that all of us together can help move forward some great names for public consideration. With that, I'll open it up for discussion.
Mayor, would it be appropriate to, if we were going to suggest naming it after Joanne Sagini, just to combine these and come up with a name later. Just to generally say Joanne Sagini, it goes on to the next round and not have to pick, the actual, there's four different ones here on the list.
I think that's fine. I think that we as a council can have some discretion exactly what that name is.
Okay, because I think at least one of us is gonna mention that, so I wouldn't want her vote to get diluted because one person says Sagini Station and someone else says.
Right, yeah, I would
Okay.
take them all as
Okay,
the same.
I agree, and that's why I tried to categorize them together too.
okay, that's good.
I know she would want to be in there, right, Shelley?
What's that?
Joanne B. Sagini.
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of people's names for a fire station location, right? Because it serves an area, and sometimes, naming it after a person, I don't know, it seems kind of off to me. But I do like some of these location names, that I think are pretty good. Especially some of these names where people would not know, and even if you Googled them, it might not really pull up a lot. Or, names just have an interesting impact. So there's some good location names, though, that I do like.
I tend to agree with that. We know who Mayor Sagini was. We know who Mayor Hale was. I don't know who L. Clyde Canning was. I'm sure to his family he was a great person, but, and it's kind of, you take a risk in naming it after, someone from an older time that not many people remember. Is, we had that thing where someone wanted to name, one of the avenues after a person, and we knew nothing about them. It could be, not saying that it was, but it could be, not a great person to name it after. Sure, the family likes that person, but, unless we dig into a history, it's risky to name it after someone that, died 60 years ago. So, that being said, I'm going to contradict myself because I like the Howard Phelps one, because there was a very detailed history online about the Phelps family, and I think it might have been submitted by his grandson, Clark Phelps, who's a pretty well-known Midvalean. So, my thoughts, I don't know. I feel like naming it after someone, as long as we have a good understanding of who that person was, especially if someone has, Joanne Sagini was mayor when we became under the UFA umbrella. So, I mean, it would make sense to consider her for that distinction. But, just that random L. Clyde Canning, I mean, it says that he was the fire chief. Has anyone in the city done anything to, look into those claims and say, yeah, he was the fire chief from this time to this time, and not just rely on whoever submitted the name?
And I'm assuming Monson's a last name, but they don't even put more than just Monson, right? So
yeah,
that could be very tenuous. Yeah, we did name a road after Joanne, and that one building wants to put a mural of her up as well,
And the auditorium and...
Yeah, the auditorium is just named after her at the arts. That's why I think naming after people just becomes sort of a game after a little bit. That's why I like the location.
So you want each of us to
pick three?
I'm open to feedback on that, but that was my thinking, is have everybody say what their top three were, and then we'll tally that, see what overlap we have, and come up with a top list of 3 to 5 names.
I think we could probably do that quick enough, as long as...
Well, then do I have a volunteer to start us off?
Think either the right or the left, Quinn or Paul.
Are you ready, Quinn?
Sure. You want me to name how many?
3.
Okay. Well, given the comments about not naming it after somebody, I mean, I don't know that I agree with all that. I think if it's the right person and there's history to it, it could be appropriate. The Clyde Canning, I think we need to look into, verifying some of that information, but I think that could be
you know, that could really be important. I mean, we don't know
Before,
about the firemen.
yeah, before we move on really quickly, Laura, do you want to speak to some of the research that?
I did do some research on Leo Clyde Canning. It is in the Midvale historical book, that information, yes.
And I have one other question. Did UFA give us suggestions on the names that they like?
They did give us, we gave them the names, and they said that they would support us on any of these names.
They didn't give names to us automatically.
Okay.
We,
I mean,
we
my
took
thing
the
is,
list to them.
You know, they're the ones that are there, and I don't want a name that they feel would honor them, right? For what they do.
Yes.
So I don't want, I mean, I get it, some of these can be fun and it could get publicity, but I don't want firefighters to feel disrespected or that they're a laughingstock. So that's why I was wondering if they have chimed in and given any preference on what they'd like.
They did. Go ahead, Matt.
They were fine with our list, but did indicate concern with the Fire McFire stations and Fire McFireface names.
That went my number one. No, I'm
My one and
However,
two.
they said that this is our process and
Right.
we can go through it.
Okay. Well, for me, I think the ones that I like is if Canning really did do all that, and I mean, I'd like to get input from the firefighters. Say, do you feel that that would be special, right? Having it named after somebody who had dedicated, you know, so many years. I mean, 51 years total, right? If they find meaning in that, that's my number one. My 2 and 3. Well, let's see. My number 2, I'm going to combine it because there's 3 with Central Valley, Midvale Center Station, and Mid-Valley Center Station. So I would say my number 2 is one of those names with the center, because we are in the middle or the center of the valley.
Well, I didn't know we could do 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D
Do you have a
here.
preference in any of those?
No, whatever somebody else wants. I mean, to me, they're kind of all the same. Well,
Yeah.
probably not Mid-Valley, just because you put it in Midvale. Probably Midvale Center Station. I'd be fine with that one. That'd be my number 2.
That's easier.
And then 3 is the Midvale Memorial Station. If we're going to do that, we probably have to come up with some standard of who gets, you know, listed on the wall as memorialized.
You have those written down? Okay.
Because I don't think we have a building big enough to honor every firefighter that's ever been, even though they all deserve it. So,
I guess it depends on how big the picture is.
yeah.
How tiny the writing is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Sperry.
That was my top 6.
Top 6. I like how you narrowed that down. I do want to add on to something that Councilmember Gettle said. With the Leo Clyde Canning, I did as much research as I possibly could, considering that that is so long ago. There could be skeletons that just aren't on the internet. So I understand your concerns. So there was not a lot about him on the internet. It's just the book that I was able to find.
Find any family members?
There was some historical information about family members on the internet search that I did, but there was not a lot of information. It was just about as much information as you could find on almost anyone.
Well, Councilmember Sperry, thank you for being brave and going first. Councilmember Robinson, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I like what Councilmember Bryant said about kind of going location-wise. But I really like the idea of the Midvale Memorial Station. Like Councilmember Sperry said, as long as we are able to limit that so that we're not over our heads on that one.
Just call me Quinn.
I can't call you Quinn. And then I think next I would go the Midvale Firehouse on Center. And last, since I'm only going to go 3 instead of 2A, 2B, 2C, Midvale Center Station.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Yeah, I have a quick question. This was from that gang units discussion. Is Old Town Midvale the name of a gang?
Yes.
I think that's a super cool name, but would that be an issue now? Yeah.
It would
Okay.
probably be
So that was
refused.
high on my list until I read it in my head again. I went, that's the name of a gang. So we
Oh,
probably
that would be-
don't
yeah.
want to.
I thought you said
to
game.
Have that
No.
on there, OTM, I see that.
Yeah.
Though, great suggestion, and I wish it wasn't hijacked, because I think that would be a great name. I just wanted to put that out there for,
Very smart.
before everyone, for everyone else. Thank you, Chief, for that. So I think my number one would be the memorial station as well. Looks like there's a lot of opportunity to make that work. And I think that's where you could honor someone like Clyde Canning and stuff like that,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
That's true.
Without having to name it, him on the station, you know what I mean? My number two is probably the Midvale Firehouse On Center. I think that's kind of creative for the area, though maybe a mouthful, I don't know. And then Midvale Center Station.
Thank you.
And Old Town Midvale's for.
Thank you.
Old Town Midvale Fire McFire Station. That whole sentence.
I like it.
Thank you. Councilmember Gettle.
I did submit the one fiery McFire station, and I want to say that it was not to disrespect firefighters in any way. It was actually to come up with a name that is memorable for a fire station, like Bodie McBoatface, which was the actual chosen name of a boat in, I think, Great Britain a few years ago. So I just wanted to say that just in case, for the chief back here. It was not any sort of disrespect at all. It was actually just, I feel in the end, if we would name it something like Central Valley, a lot of people might not ever call it that. But if you call it Fiery McFire Station, that kind of sticks in people's heads for better or worse. Anyway, that's my number one. No, not joking.
Can we name a fire engine that? Would that be less respectful? Fiery McFire Engine?
How about we name a snowplow that? Let me name a snowplow.
Well, I wanted to name the loader, the cane loader, and no one, that was
Pretty good.
the cane loader, but no one wanted that.
We need to do that, actually. That's a need.
Anyway, I'm going to put in a plug for former Mayor Sagini, since she was instrumental in bringing Midvale into the Unified Fire Authority umbrella. I do also like Midvale Center Station, because that's where it is. It's in Midvale and it's on center. So my third would not be Old Town Midvale, although it is a great name. I think that my third, I'm going to put in a plug for the Howard E. Phelps, I don't know if you'd call it Memorial Station or whatever. So Sagini, number one, Midvale Center Station 2, and then Howard E. Phelps 3.
Thank you. Councilmember Glover.
I would go, I've had several people call me and say they like the name of Joanne Skeeny on it. So that would be one. Midville Memorial Station, I like that one. And I like the Old Town Midvale Fire Station.
Thank you. So looking at that, we've got Midvale Center Station with 4 votes. So, and I believe the most we got was 4. So Midvale Memorial Station and Midvale Center Station both had 4. And then we had a couple with 2. So one with Mayor Sagini's name, and then the Midvale Firehouse on Center.
So this, I'm not sure this process, we'll let the population vote, but then we decide on it. So why don't we just decide on it? If 4 of us pick the one now, does that make sense? Or
The community will decide.
so
You're
we'll
going to
come
narrow
back.
it down, and then they'll decide.
Okay.
Final vote.
And we won't vote on it again then?
Correct.
Okay, that makes more sense. I'm like, this, like, what if they picked one that one person picked, and then, or when we did, they were like, and we're not gonna do Fire McFire Station, even though it's there, we're gonna do Midvale Center Station.
My recommendation, if somebody would like to make the motion, is that we then to public would move forward a variation of the Joanne Sagini Fire Station, Midvale Center Station, Midvale Firehouse on Center, and Midvale Memorial Station. Move forward those 4 names.
I have one question.
Yes.
All of you said, and I agree, Midvale Center Station. The suggestion was Mid-Valley Center Station.
No, there was two.
Oh, there's two?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very
I was
much for
trying to
catching that.
all center the one.
Oh, you're right, there are two.
center
Okay, good,
into
got
one.
it.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Midvale one is more.
It is,
Bottom
great.
of page one.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for thank you. Okay. Can we have a motion?
I move to what the mayor said.
Second.
Does that work for you? Okay, any discussion on that?
Who, are you gonna come up with, who is gonna come up with the proper Sagini verbiage? Because there are some, like, I don't necessarily like, Joanne Sagini Memorial Fire Station. That's too wordy. I think you can narrow that down. So I don't know if it would just be the Joanne B. Sagini Station, which people would call Sagini
Is
Station.
everyone comfortable if we put forward Joanne B. Sagini Station? Any objections to that?
Any reason we want to put fire station, just so they know?
Did you hear that?
I mean, I don't like it anyway.
I mean,
so
either way,
you do
but-
whatever you want.
Does the
Because the other ones are Midvale Center Station, it's
Yeah.
not Midvale Center
Chief
Fire
Larson, on
Station.
the, do you know if on the side of the fire station, do we need to say fire on it? Or can it just say station?
It'll always have Fire Station 125
You're right.
on it.
Okay.
We'll also have fire trucks.
I don't think people will be confused.
Okay, I'm just asking the
No,
question.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, it
I
could
missed
be
the last
like,
thing you said.
someone could think it's like a track station or something, yeah, I see what you mean.
My recommendation would be Joanne B. Sagini Station. If we get clarification, it needs to have fire on there, then we'll,
Yeah, that sounds good.
okay. There's no objections to that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that? Shelley,
Are we doing a ranked choice voting on this, or?
no. Shelley, we call roll.
Councilmember Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Sperry.
Aye.
Glover.
Aye.
I have one question now that we voted. If we're asking for the public input, are we going to do the survey similar to the one that Kyle did for the county? Which was, if they didn't like your answer, they just shut you out, right?
Oh, that's funny. I don't remember that.
They wanted to get public input, but then if you answered a question the way they didn't like it, they just didn't let you finish.
They will only have these choices. They can't do other.
And what makes me a little, why I don't like this process is, what if they're not from Midvale? There's no way of knowing,
Yeah,
right? So,
Can we have
not
a
that they're
criteria?
bad names or
We
anything
asked that
along those,
question.
likely, yeah, but they could still say just
Right.
yes, right? So I just would hate, I don't know, I don't like the public picking in this scenario unless we can verify it, but that's,
This is why we're the guinea pig for UFA, and we will take back lessons learned.
yeah.
And maybe that's when.
I will tell you that some of the suggestions we received were from UFA employees, and I thought that was kind of nice. I don't know if they live in Midvale or not, but I know their email address was at UFA, and I thought that was kind of nice. So, but you're right, how do you know if they live in Midvale or not?
Yeah, and luckily, there's not one that's like offensive, right? And that they
Yes.
flood it and it like goes viral.
Right.
But, I mean, I feel like, I don't know, I don't love it. But that's
And
not
this is-
anyone's fault, you know.
And this is also our Engage Midvale. This is like, we're gonna keep trialing, keep going with and trying to improve it as we continuously go and improve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I would also ask that once this is live, that all of you send it out to your Midvale networks and make sure that we really get good engagement on this. I know I've been trying to do that, but it's still really a group of 10 folks that I bombard all the time. So I think having more engagement on this would be helpful to actually get a significant answer.
Yeah, this was the first project on Engage Midvale. The State Street corridor, we have 160 survey responses. So more and more people are getting active on it. So I expect we'll have a lot of votes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item D, consideration of resolution number 2022 R18, adopting a new Midvale City Council district map. not a district map.
District map.
As you're aware, the redistricting process for the city council is a legislative process, so we've talked about it several times, I'm just gonna set the table on this one, and then I'll go back to my seat as you guys deliberate on the maps. Just real quick, just as a quick reminder, while we had some previous conversations, we really started discussing it in earnest in November, around the time that the state completed their redistricting. At that time, we proposed some different processes for moving forward. The council had some recommendations on how to proceed, and we started going in that direction. In January, we followed back up with another meeting on process, just to make sure everyone was still okay with it. And then from there, we proceeded to generate maps. In February, we came to a workshop and met with the council to discuss 3 map options that we had created. At that time, the council had indicated of those 3 options, there were options 1 and options 2 were the ones that were the most favorable at that time. We'd indicated that that was not necessarily meaning that those needed to be the last maps, but that we would use those as part of our public engagement process to provide comments. March 10th, we started doing online public engagement through our Engage Midville platform. We held an open house on March 15th, another open house on March 23rd, and then on April 5th, we had a public hearing on the redistricting and city council discussion. In that city council discussion, there were some recommendations for things that the council wanted staff to look into, and we did pursue those. I'll talk about those in a second. As we were looking at trying to come up with new variations on the council districts, we were looking at certain criteria, which we've discussed on most of those times that we met with you. Again, we have to create 5 districts. They need to be substantially equal in population, cannot bisect voting precincts. They need to be contiguous and reasonably compact, and the city council members should remain in their district, is what we were operating under. Based off that, we did try to come up with some alternatives that would meet some of the objectives that came out of the last meeting. I'm not going to go through all of the different variations, but we ran into similar problems as shown in this one. In the bottom right-hand corner is a bar graph showing what the population is in these different districts that we try to put together. And what we ended up finding is small changes would create relatively large swings in population and not make them so they are substantially equal. 2 of the big issues that we were running into as we were going through this process is that, for example, where the city council members live can cause some issues when we're trying to redistrict. And then the other is that some of the precincts have very large populations and some of the other precincts have small populations, and they happen to be just located in areas that really make this a complex logic puzzle. We went through and did at least 8 or 9 additional variations. And this is just another representative one showing just what kind of swings we can see as we try to make some of those adjustments. Last week, I had indicated that this was the case, and there was some indication that from the council that there would be more interest in just moving forward with a vote on the original options 1 and 2 rather than continuing on to discuss these variables, given that we could not find an additional viable variable. Just as a quick reminder, there are 2 options that are still remaining. In the resolution that we've included in the packet, you may have noticed that what I do is I've attached both option 1 and 2 to that resolution, but I leave a blank in the action portion of the resolution where we will need to make sure that it's clear which option you're selecting if you do, in fact, complete a vote on this evening, in an effort to try to make it clear once it's done which option you're going with. Anyways, this is option 1. This is option 2. We did discuss this at the last meeting, and with that, unless you have any other questions, I'll go back to my seat. But if there's anything that you would like me to discuss on this, I'm happy to do that. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll open it up for discussion from the council.
Well, thank you, Matt. City Manager Dull, sorry. I still like option number 2. Most of the feedback I've received has been, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of split amongst people, whether they want 1 or 2. It kind of depends. For some people, it depends what council member they end up with. You know, not that one's better than the other, but some are just used to having a council member who they want to keep. Can't keep them all, unfortunately, but option number 2, again, I think is the most even as far as the number of residents per council district. It also creates the most natural physical barriers as far as, you know, not bringing too many people over the freeway so that residents of the communities have to wonder if they're north of the freeway division, do they call Paul, or do they call me, or do they call Councilmember Brown? So I think number 2 does a better job of addressing that issue as well. The issue with number 1 that I've heard is that it creates 3 different council members who represent at least some part of the east side of Midvale and the west side of Midvale. I would argue option number 2 creates 2 dedicated council members for the east side and 2 dedicated council members for the west side, with 1 council member going into both areas. I think if you have 3 council members who do just a tiny bit of one area or the other, that again can cause some confusion among residents in those areas who wonder, you know, if they live in the tiny area that Heidi or Councilmember Robinson would have on the west side of State Street. I think it would just cause confusion as well to have 3 different council members kind of, you know, going back and forth across State Street when, you know, we would have 2 in very dedicated areas in option number 2 as well. So those are some of my thoughts on that. Some of the feedback I received personally, again, was like, you know, the people who I would lose in option number 1 say, like, I don't like that one because I don't want to lose you. You know, and I'm sure there are people who think the exact opposite as well, but, you know, a little less, people might be a little more hesitant to say that just because people in Midville tend to be nice. But again, I think option number 2, just geographically, it looks better. It creates natural barriers. It does what we set out to do as far as creating very understandable communities that aren't confusing to the residents to wonder if they're an inch over State Street, do they call Heidi or Bryant or Quinn? So I'm going to support option number 2.
Yeah, I prefer option number 1. I look at it as the reason why we're here is, you know, District 5 almost, well, so I did a lot of research into sort of the history. And up in even till the 90s, we were an at-large council. So the districts are still sort of new to the idea of the council, at least long-term, right? And District 5 has exploded over the last, 15 years or less. And the idea of putting all of the most densely populated area of Midvale into one would just, within a year or 2, just get us back to where we're at, right? Because we're going to have, 300 condos that are going to be built, a whole set of apartments that we approved as well. I've seen online, it looks 50-50 on what people want. My area, hands down, isn't 50-50. They want option number 1. They think the split down the State Street is actually pretty even. There's no real small area. I have several thousand people on the east side. Councilmember Robinson will have the biggest precinct ever. That's part of our problem, is there's the biggest precinct in Midvale, something like 3,000 people, voters on the west side. So they feel like there's that east-west division. But I do think the city's done a good job at making 2 maps that sort of fulfill our goals. I think option 1 just is a long-term option, right, where, you can sort of start planning. It's interesting to look at the 2 options. Quinn, or Councilmember Sperry, has no change Councilmember Gettle has, even though he has a huge section change, has 30 people different, if you sort of look at the numbers, right? So it's sort of, the big changes are between me and Councilmember Robinson and Glover, right? Which is interesting to sort of look at, since there's a huge population shift since we've done this last. But the numbers don't affect two of them in the aggregate. Now, as far as voters, that's a different sort of subject. So for me, I think option one, that's what everyone has told me they want. There's a lot of people I've fought for on the east side. They're building those homes there that I put a lot of time and energy with that community. And I kind of want to see it through. So I think option one's fair and sort of representative more of a long-term look.
I agree with Councilmember Brown as far as the long term. I think option one is the best for future planning, because I mean, we have to remember this map isn't just for us, it's for the future of Midville. I also like the fact that we do have 3 representatives that are representing both east and west on what I think are actually pretty easy defined areas. I think when I was knocking on doors, that's one thing I heard the most, was that the west side didn't feel like they had the east side representation, and there was an east side, west side thing. And I really think that option one will help us bridge that gap, so that when we are out knocking on doors, or candidates are out knocking on doors, we're not just focused on the east side, or we're on both sides. So yeah, I really like option one, especially for long term.
I can live with either one, but I would go with option two. I just think that the boundaries, the freeway and everything just makes it easier for the citizens to understand who their representative is.
The freeway splits the same between option 1 and 2. I just want to make sure that's clear.
I'm saying
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, for you, yeah,
Okay.
I get that. For me, it makes it more challenging. So the
Yes.
same reason.
So, and that's what I'm saying. It's just, for me, it's an easier, I like.
So Quinn should make the motion, is what you're saying.
Well, number two, it makes it even better than I have it right now, just because the fact that I don't have that little section where I'm going down 7,500 on one side of the street is another councilman versus, it simplifies everything for me. Again, I can live with either one. I mean, eventually there's gonna be another city councilman here, so it's.
Oh, and this will have to be drawn again in 10 years, regardless.
In 10 years, it'll get again. So, but
Because of our
anyhow,
growth.
right now, I would vote number 2.
The thing I would say too, one of the issues with, people saying that, they wish they had more representation on the east side, again, this map number 2 creates 2 dedicated council members for the east side. So, they would have 2 dedicated ones, rather than, again, some council members who have 1/7 of their people on one side or the other. Map number 1 also creates, in Paul's district, a very unnatural looking district. It's much larger in just geographical area than the others. It crosses the freeway, it goes down onto Bingham Junction Boulevard halfway and kind of stops at the businesses. So, that part of it is not very conducive to the goals that we set as far as having compact districts that make sense as far as communities go. In fact, it splits a community pretty significantly at the north end of the current 5th district. I would say too, the east side of Midvale has 5 council members. It doesn't have 1, 2, 3, all 5 of us. If someone from Quinn's district calls me, I don't tell them to call Quinn. I'll try to help them with their issue and also loop Quinn into the issue as well, which he has done for me when people called him about parking on Bingham Junction Boulevard in the wintertime. So, I think as long as we keep perpetuating by saying we're going to give you more representation by having 3 council members in the east side, it continues to perpetuate that there is an east-west division, rather than just saying you have 5 council members, we're elected to serve the city of Midvale, not, we're elected in our district, but we don't serve our district only. We serve the entire city of Midvale. So, you know, with that said, again, option number one just kind of is not as compact and doesn't make as much sense as far as the divisions of communities go.
Matt, but one of these things I do find about this map generally and the precincts between essentially in this one, in mid one, between 7200 or 70th South or 7200 South, kind of where it curves to the border, so where Glover's would be, does a single home exist in there, or is that 100%? Because I think that's tracks. That line is tracks, right? So everything between 70th and that line, I don't know if a single voting entity exists there, right? Isn't that how that looks? Because everything north of that would be IHC, Overstock, Savage, Marriott. I don't know if a single home, what I'm getting at is I don't think it splits any actual community, right?
The problem is you can't split voting precincts.
Well, right, I'm just saying that there is no split in the community because that's the business island, right?
Right.
So I just don't want to,
There's,
there could be instances where you go right through an apartment complex if you do a road, right? And this one doesn't necessarily do that.
directly south of the 7200 line, there are no current homes there. That's where Savage, Overstock, those things are. That's not to say that there will never be homes there. Another thing I'd like to point out is, you know, these maps are based on population now, which is what the maps are supposed to. That's why they're done every 10 years. So if population explodes in District 4 in the next 10 years, then we readjust. So, you know, I don't know about that argument that we have to plan for my district to explode again. You know, we did that. That's why we have two different maps. That's taking 2,600 voters from me. So, you know, we do it every 10 years, and, you know, we've done the planning for the next 10 years. That's what this map is for. Over the next 10 years, you know, you might see an explosion in one area versus another, and then you come back 10 years from now and do it again.
District 1 has that possibility over by Walmart if they do that redevelopment.
For sure, yeah.
But District 4 doesn't at all. I don't know if, and District 3 doesn't either, right? At least for now. There's not really a location for that to exist. But we do know that thousands of units will be built in 1 and 5 probably within the next 10 years.
District 3 will get that new development off 80th, because that comes in, but that's how many?
District 4 in this map.
Oh, well,
in option
I guess in option 1 or District 3.
Yeah, that's about 80 homes, 80 single family, I think, yeah. That's the only one I can think of over there. And I guess if the church was torn down, they could put a few more, but.
One last thing I want to say, I think, you know, 4 of us know how the vote's going to go, but, you know, I did mention in 2018 that I thought it would be a better idea to have a committee made up of residents and however that would have gone to make these recommendations for us to prevent exactly what's happening now. You know, right now there's 2 council members who prefer one map and there's 2 council members who prefer another and a third to be determined. So it's really, when you think about it now, it's coming down to 1 council member who is going to pick for the entire city
No pressure.
what district they live in for the next 10 years. Whereas if we could have gotten an independent committee to recommend us what they thought was the fairest option, you know, that's how I think it should have gone. That's why I advocated so hard for it at the time. And it's a shame to me that we're in the position that we're in right now, doing exactly what none of us want our state legislature to do. And, you know, honestly, we're doing it. So it's a little disappointing to me in that way.
Well, everything we vote on, though, it comes down to the same thing. I mean, that's why we vote and why we have 5 councilmen.
Yeah, well, when you have a commission, you know, that, or a committee that their findings aren't binding, but, you know, barring any huge errors that they made, I would have gone with their recommendation. You know, I think that was the point of putting together that type of independent committee. So I think we missed quite an opportunity there to save all of us up here from an uncomfortable vote that should take place very soon.
Sooner than later.
I'm ready for a motion whenever you are.
Mayor, I move.
I was going to comment. I mean, the mayor said I was brave in going first with the fire station earlier. I don't know. This is harder, but I mean, I've been the tie-breaking vote in other big votes, and I've been trashed online, and I'm sure I'm going to get trashed online for this one. So
I think I once called you our Anthony Kennedy, which is a kind of an antiquated one now, since you're our John Roberts, I guess.
But they don't, one doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately.
I mean, you know, I've looked at this. There's pros and cons to both maps, right? We all get that, and I mean, I appreciate the staff in going through however many different iterations that you went through.
At least 11.
Yeah, a lot.
The 12th is what we needed.
You know, I also appreciate from our prior meetings, we knew it was going to be 2-2, and I was the deciding vote. So I want to thank all of you for the gifts you sent me this past week. They were all under $50. Trying to sway my vote. No, I'm just joking. Nobody sent me in gifts. Brian's like, oh my gosh, what's this guy doing? I mean, really, it's...
I just realized I missed out on sending you a gift. That's why I made that face, because I didn't send you one.
Dustin sent me a pygmy goat sweater.
I did.
You know.
And a pygmy goat.
Heidi sent me a soccer ball. I did. No, I'm joking. Nobody sent me anything. They will, depending on how I vote. Just kidding.
It's a guaranteed 2 gifts, I guess is what he's getting at.
Mayor, I would like to move, sorry.
Nope.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Councilmember
I mean,
Sperry.
I came into the meeting undecided. I was leaning towards one map. I appreciate the arguments. I'm probably still going with the one that I came in with. So, but good arguments on both sides.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2021 R10, adopting city council redistricting option number 2 as the new city council district map.
We have a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Okay, Shelley, will you call roll?
Councilmember Robinson? No. Brown?
No.
Kittle?
Yes.
You gotta go Glover, because I have to be last. You have to go Glover. It's the suspense.
Aye.
Sperry?
Aye.
That passes.
Nobody forward me social media posts. I don't want to hear.
You're getting them all.
All right.
Heidi's going to burn my grass and say it's in.
Well, don't water it, okay?
I was going to say it's in the thought of conserving water.
Okay.
All right, thank you for getting through that discussion. I know it was a hard one for everyone. Moving on to our discussion items, we've just got one here. Discuss fiscal year 2023 capital projects and council suggested projects. Kyle.
When does that go into effect, by the way? The maps?
2030.
That's it.
Yeah, does it go into effect for,
So,
the elections are next year?
Yeah,
2023,
it should be as soon as from my understanding, now maybe you may have a better answer. Because what I know what's happening right now in the legislature, because it's this weird in-between period. Right now, the old districts are still in place, but candidates are running and filing for the new districts, but the new districts don't take place until the new people are sworn in. So I don't think it's not until you're sworn into office, until the end of the term.
But our
Well,
2023
it wouldn't be the end
election.
of the term because our terms are
Scattered.
scattered, so it's got to be the next election.
Yeah,
The next one where we have.
Throw it all out. We'll just stick with what we've had for the last 10 years.
that works for me. But that is a good question,
Lisa
so
says the next city election.
when will residents know, I mean, I don't know, a few of us are losing residents that we had before, so when, we should know when that goes into effect.
Yeah. I would like to let my handful know that, having the smallest district losing residents is lame in this whole process, but I would like to let them know because, it doesn't actually make any sense, but I'll let them know.
Well, so we will be transmitting your decision to the county prior to in the next couple of weeks, we'll be transmitting that to them. I understand you're asking when does that take effect, but we will also be promoting your decision this evening so that people know what that decision was. We'll get the official decision on when that comes clear, but we would be, in the next election, people would be running in the new council districts. So we'll tell you when that exact date is, but that is what they'll be running for.
Okay, thank you. I will try to expedite this discussion since we also have an RDA meeting coming up. First, I just wanted to give an overview of the budget process. So we are sprinting our way towards having a tentative budget ready for inspection, which will be April 26th. The Administrative Services Director is working on the budget book and all of that involved. And then the May 3rd meeting would be the adoption of the tentative budget, which we do have to have a tentative budget adopted. For you as a council, it doesn't mean you have to agree with everything in the budget. It really opens up the public inspection process and allows further discussion of the budget. So first, this is really a follow-up to some of the retreat items that were discussed, in particular some projects and items you wanted us to look at as staff. So a couple of those, we'll just kind of delve into it. One was putting permanent holiday lights for City Hall, which would be a cost saver over time. It is labor intensive to have a company come out and put the lights up on City Hall. Our Public Works Director did get a quote, and that'll be around $25,000. That does include some contingency funds. Councilmember Gettle had asked about lamppost banners. I've got a whole slide on that to discuss some different options with that. In addition, we looked into what it would cost to put a mural on our glass dumpster in the main park, and that is going to be about $5,000. We also had some questions about starting a LEAF program. I do have a additional slide with more detail on that. The one for staff, it's 3 question marks right now, is we are still looking into a peer court, what exactly that would involve. Staff hasn't come to a consensus or we don't have a recommendation for you yet on that, so we don't have a cost assigned to that. One thing that has been requested by the mayor is additional communications engagement. Specifically, what the mayor had been asking for was additional options for texting and some other things like that. Our communications director has already done some initial research on that. However, we need to do more because the costs can vary widely depending on the product. What staff's recommendation is that, at least for the tentative budget, we put $10,000 in for that. If we don't need the entire amount for a texting service or whatever is agreed upon, we'd have some additional engagement funds for other things. Another request was us to look into a chamber refresh, in particular for some of the displays in the council chambers. That was another one that was really hard to put a cost on because it could vary from a few $100s to tens of thousands of dollars. So literally was staff throwing a dart at the board on an amount, so we put $5,000 on this, but that is certainly open for discussion. And then there was a question on possibly doing another employee gift. We have done jackets and other things in the past. There was a suggestion maybe we do like a preparedness kit. So we did assign a cost for that. So delving into a couple of the ones that have a little bit more detail on it. The first one was for the lamppost banners. Our Public Works Director did a great job doing some research on that. So he broke it down into 3 areas. One would be the Bingham Junction area and State Street. Both of those areas, and also around Topgolf, all those areas currently have the lamppost banners that they could hang the banners off of. There would possibly need to be some repairs done on that because he didn't go through and do a full inspection on the hardware that's already on there. So Based off the number of poles in Bingham Junction, it'd be around $7,000. State Street would be $16,000. I did also on these numbers, and then Topgolf was $2,500. I did build in some contingency for broken banner hardware and that type of thing, so that has been built in there. To give you an idea on cost, each banner would be about $160. It is noted on here, if the poles aren't banner ready or if they need repairs, it'll be about $300 per pole for the State Street poles, and then $250 for the other poles, which would be like Bingham Junction and Jordan Bluffs. To give you an idea on staff time, it'd be about an hour per pole for our Public Works crew to install those. I do have on there some of the requirements of what it would take to actually do the work. One thing the Public Works Director did note is if the council decides to fund this and it's a continued program instead of just a one-time, he did recommend he would need to switch out their man lift with a bucket truck to be more safe and to be more efficient on that. Flipping topics a little bit, so the Public Works Director also did a lot of research on a leaf dumpster program. One thing to note is that Ace Disposal, who's our contracted disposal company, wouldn't have dumpsters available till November. This is due to contracts they have with other clients, and they're already in line for those, so November would be the earliest we could get the dumpsters. His suggestion would be to put it in 2 locations to start, which would be Main Park and then the Adams Street Park, and 2 dumpsters at each location. Some things he just wanted to note, especially on the personnel side, is that, of course, they would need to be monitored and cleaned daily. He did warn on Mondays, especially after a weekend, until we get education done and people are used to the program, it could become a dumping free-for-all where people are dumping couches, refrigerators, all types of things. I'm sure the Public Works Director could talk on that a little bit more. And he did, just as a reminder, just say, since we do not have dedicated sanitation employees, he would be pulling employees from other divisions to help staff this and cover it and make sure it's cleaned. He did, however, note that this is a good solution until Transjordan completes their transfer station at the south end of 7th West. So with that, before we move on, are there any general comments or thoughts, especially on the lampposts and the leaf dumpsters where there's more detail on those?
I just can't believe that it costs $25,000 to put permanent Christmas lights on this building. Is there a reason why it's so high? I mean,
They're high quality lights that are LED that you can control from your phone. It cost $2,000 for my house, so $25,000 actually seems less than I thought it would be.
What are we
I thought it was
paying?
gonna be close to 50 or 60, so I'm slightly shocked it's only $25K.
What are we paying to have it put up each year?
Do you know that, Glenn?
Yeah, it's about 5,000 annually.
I think it's a good idea, obviously. I'm surprised it costs that
There
much
is a
money.
few thousand in contingency in there, which I'm glad I put in there. As you know, the Arts Council is looking to having lights put on at the Performing Arts Building. While the walkthrough today went well, they do want to add an additional outlet. So, I mean, little things like that might come up that need to be addressed.
So would the $25,000 include any lights at the arts building as well?
No, that's completely separate. So we have a little bit of holiday lighting money that's been carried over for a few years.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So staff has agreed to help the Arts Council with the cost, but they're shouldering most of the cost to do that.
And real quick for the dumpster, was that through ACE or through the Momentum?
It was through Momentum. I met with ACE yesterday and forwarded them the information because it is ACE's dumpster. They're looking into it, but if we go that route, I feel comfortable that they would allow Momentum to do that.
Okay.
What were we talking about? The banner lights. So just for a complete understanding, the permanent lights, the $25,000 just includes the permanent lights.
Okay.
Okay, we pay currently roughly $5,000 a year to do the temporary lights, and that also gets us the trees out front and some wreaths. So we got a bunch of quotes that included all options. So just to clarify and separate, $25,000 is permanent lights. That's just permanent lights. To continue the trees and that outside is an additional $3,000 annually. So it's $2,000 savings annually, 10-year payoff-ish.
And they would be up all year round, right? So
Yeah, and you could use them, change the colors.
And before we get too far ahead, we would want to write a policy before those lights go live. Where it's like, these are the holidays that we turn them on. This would be the circumstance we would turn them on for other purposes. That way we don't just get requests every, 3 days for like, hey, it's my kid's birthday. Can you turn on the birthday celebration? They're a longtime Midvale resident, this resident just turned 100. Maybe that's a reason, right? But maybe not just run of the mill. So I think you're going to want to get in front of a policy before it bites us in the butt when we look like we're discriminating against a holiday of some kind or something along those lines. But it's more than a $2,000 savings if you think, well, what if we were to put the lights up for the 4th of July, right? Even though we don't do that now, you can now run them during the 4th of July. So the math would be interesting if you were to figure out what that would cost, otherwise.
I do also want to note we didn't go through a full procurement process, so just due to the tight turnaround, the Public Works Director was only able to get one quote, and it was not the lowest quote for the Performing Arts building. It's not the company they're going with. So it is possible the cost could go down. However, I'd rather put a higher amount in the budget and then tell you we need to reallocate money than to try to scramble to find money somewhere else.
Do you know how long these lights are supposed to last before they need to be replaced?
Yes.
It's like a 10-year minimum, right?
Yeah, 10 or 15. And there might have been, if you wanted to buy an extended warranty, that option as well. But I could follow up. I don't recall off the top of my head.
I just want to make sure if that's the route we're going, we actually save that money in the long term.
Yeah.
Do you know what is it Everlight or Jellyfish or what? Do you know what the actual brand of light is?
The quote was through Jellyfish.
So that is the most expensive one in Utah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went through this on my house, so I'm very aware.
And it was, I believe, the most expensive for the Arts Council, too. So I did want to just briefly go over, I know we went through this through the retreat, but, and I did print these out, so if you're trying to squint to see the screen, I did provide the printouts for you. This is the current list of proposed capital projects for next year. There hasn't been a whole lot of changes. I did highlight the two that are new. One, as the Community Development Director mentioned, he did get awarded a Fort Union Corridor Study grant. That does have a $10,000 match for the city, so we did put that into the capital project list. And then the holiday lighting is also there. Other than that, the list hasn't changed from what was presented at the retreat. We'll, of course, need to have further discussion. We have that $90,000 put aside for cemetery improvement funds. The Public Works Director will need more direction before we would actually start spending those funds. If that's meant to be designed, if the council chooses to recommend the Public Works Director do a study, it could fund a study. If it's more of just repairing what we already have, it could go towards fencing or other upgrade needs. So we try to leave that as broad as possible, so once the decision is made, we have some funds to start implementing that. Once again, the community gardens money of $50,000, that was the amount recommended by Wasatch Community Gardens. What they've seen, that if we had a plot that we had to start from scratch, we would probably need that much to get the plot up to the standard it would need to be at to actually be gardened. And then you'll notice we still have the two savings accounts. So one is park enhancement. So the thought behind that is once we have our parks master plan done and we have a list of projects and recommendations, we would have some funds to start working on that. In addition, the putting money towards the recreation center study and then the savings account for a possible recreation center or pool. Based off of council direction, we combined the study and the seed money into one number. So whatever's not used in the study would just go towards the the savings account. Other than that, and then of course, I don't believe we discussed this much at the retreat, but there are some restricted funds we do receive, which is mainly sales tax. Excuse me. So the city engineer had requested we increase the sidewalk, curb, and gutter money from $100,000 to $200,000, and then the remainder of what we're expecting to receive as sales tax would go towards pavement management, or what we use to maintain the roads. And then many of you may or may not remember House Bill 244 from 2 legislative sessions ago that provides us with transportation funding for regionally significant projects. So we are expected to receive $500,000 for that. Staff right at the current time doesn't have recommendations on a project for that. We actually last week just received our first allocation of that funding. We weren't sure when it was going to come in, so that was also a hold up on staffs because we didn't want to recommend a project when we didn't know the funding would be coming in.
Does it come in more than once per year?
It just comes in once per year.
Okay. So how much was that?
It was $500,000.
Oh, okay. So that's not, oh, I see. It's a placeholder because we don't have anything earmarked for
Right.
it.
We don't have a
Okay.
specific project recommended for it at
Gotcha.
the current time.
But we will find one.
Yes.
Okay. Is that money we can roll over? Like if we don't have a project this year, can we use $1 million
Right.
next year?
Right. Since it's restricted, we have to spend it on transportation. So it will roll over.
Okay.
We'd originally thought that was going to go towards the roundabout solution for Wasatch and 700 West, and then with some changes that we've had, that we've talked about in the past, that was not where that money should go, so we'll look at it. The other, I mean, we've also considered that we could potentially bond against it as well, depending on the project that we have. So it does provide us with some good options, and we're continuing to work on what that should go towards.
Thank you. We didn't discuss this at the retreat. I did want to bring it up. So we do have a number of projects that we currently have budget for in the current year's budget. These could be subject to reallocation at your discretion if you so choose. And what I mean to subject to reallocation is we haven't started a project yet, or it hasn't been from restricted sources. So as you can see, a few of these we do have plans for example, the traffic calming program. So those would be instruments we would use for traffic calming. Staff has been waiting till the traffic committee's formed to start making recommendations on how to spend those funds. As we discussed at the retreat, we are setting aside money yearly for facility maintenance. Staff feels this is very important, so this is the first part. We haven't actually started those projects yet. We have savings accounts already for park improvements and the recreation center pool. We do have some projects, as we discussed last year when we went over the list, we currently don't have an active plan or project for, such as the overflow parking. We're still researching options on that, if that is still a good idea. We also have the money set aside for the citywide software initiative. And as a reminder on that, we had a consultant do a study in January of 2020 that had recommended we need some different software in both our finance, and then community development needs additional software too. So we've been setting aside money to work on those projects, which if funding is approved, we actually may be able to start a project next year. But I would want to give you some more detail on what that would involve first. Question for you for discussion is if any of these you have major disagreements with, or want us as staff to explore further, or any reallocations. And as I said, we can discuss this also through the budget process.
So if it's on the list that you just went through, and if we don't say we want it off the list, it's likely to happen during the next fiscal year.
It will show up on the city manager's recommended tentative budget. Finally, I won't go over this because it's basically what we went through just in tabular form. And then finally, I do want to go over budget implications. So all of our one-time requests, not just the ones that we've included here, totals about $56,000. Right now, our one-time funds, when we look at the one-time funds available in the new year's budget, we're short about $11,000. However, talking with the Administrative Services Director, by the time we do our final reconciliations and there's other adjusting areas, we can make that balance. The ongoing requests, however, are about $10,000 right now, plus whatever peer court option is recommended. Right now, our ongoing funds are in deficit, and we did discuss this a little bit at the retreat. However, I can't give you a number right now since we are still waiting for our number from UPD. Staff does have a meeting with them tomorrow, so I should have more information on that. So with that, are there any further questions or comments or anything we've missed as staff?
Thank you for pulling
Thank you.
all this together. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Kyle.
I think, Paul, you're up.
All right. Anybody want to make our final motion for this
Motion to
meeting?
adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Great, we're adjourned. Want 5 minutes? Yep. Okay. Behind.
I wouldn't be.
Let's go.
St. George tonight.
All right. Welcome everyone to the redevelopment agency of Midville City. Shelley, will you call roll?
Yes. Board member Sperry.
Here.
Gettle.
Here.
Glover.
Here.
Robinson. Here. Brad.
Here.
Thank you. All right, this next portion of the meeting is for public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda may address the redevelopment agency of Midvale City Board at this point by stepping to the microphone. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Shelley, do we have any online public comments?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving to our public hearing, discuss proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget for the Bingham Junction, Jordan Bluffs, Main Street, and citywide housing RDA funds. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Mayor, I motion we open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any against? All right, we are in a public hearing. Go ahead, go.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, RDA Board. Pleasure to be here with you this evening. And before we dive into the line items and the numbers, just bring attention to our mission, vision, and values, which is really our launching point when we discuss what our budget's going to be next year, what amendments we're making to our budget, just that we're connecting it all back to our values, that we're transparent and engaged, we show integrity, community collaboration, commitment to city goals of housing, beautification, and historic preservation, and commitment to responsible growth. And sometimes you can get into the nitty-gritty of things, but as long as you can connect it, make a strong connection to your values, your vision, and your mission, you're going in the right direction. So, just an overview of, we cut some of the funds. I think 3 of the funds were kind of superfluous, weren't doing anything, so we chopped 3 of them, so we're down to 5 funds. RDA operations, no proposed changes to that one. The Bingham Junction project area, we're going to be making some changes just because of the way that it's supposed to be with accounting. You have to account from the city's contributions separately from all the other taxing entities. So we weren't doing that. So we're going to start doing that now so that it's easier for our friends in finance. And we're also going to be increasing our use of fund balance by a little bit. This fiscal year, we received $313,000 less than we were anticipating distribution-wise. I did some research and found that I think a couple of parcels were not included just from the county's database. So pretty significant, about $20 million of value from these 2 parcels. So I'm going to be following up with the county, and that would account for the majority of it. And then there was also some reassessments done that pulled value also away to the tune of $13 million, which happened, but I'm going to follow up on that $20 million to see what is going on there. And then we're decreasing the public art by $50,000. We had budgeted $100, and I think we're going to spend half of it for public art in the Bingham Junction project area. And we didn't have infrastructure improvements that we had thought we had budgeted for. We're increasing the professional services to $75,500. That is mostly going, that's pretty much all for the City Hall campus that we talked about in the last City Council meeting, making those improvements to the plaza. That's going to be for the planning for that. And then increasing the transfer to the Main Street project area fund by $131,000, and that is from the mural festival, and that will be repaid back to Bingham Junction when funds are available. And then that's the majority of them. The Jordan Bluffs project area, same thing, accounting for the city's contribution separately from all the others. And then we actually did receive about $250,000 more from Jordan Bluffs than we were anticipating, and that's just a matter of what the county, how much of the value of the Zions building the county was going to account for. And so We are also increasing interest by a little bit and decreasing the use of fund balance. So we're just going to be putting a little bit more towards the fund balance. And then expense-wise, increase in professional services. That just accounts for an agreement that we had with a realtor for the purchase of land, and that's stretched over 10 years. And so they just receive incremental distributions of funding for that. And that's pretty much it for Jordan Bluffs. And the Main Street project area, the main things here are we're going to have a study done, a branding and marketing study. So we're putting funding aside for that. And then we're also going to be increasing public art for the Mural Festival, which was transferred from Bingham Junction, and decreasing the use of the fund balance by a little bit. And then citywide housing, we discussed a few, I think 2 council meetings ago, the $1.7 million loan that we're contemplating with Sunset Gardens, and I think that's probably the biggest. So we just are increasing our affordable housing incentives by $500,000 to facilitate that, and then decreasing other areas where the funds were not spent. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to field them. But that's pretty much the changes that are going to be happening to the fiscal year 2022 budget that we're proposing.
On those parcels the county didn't, are we able to get the money back from that? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to be reaching out to the county and asking, look, I went through your data set, compared the tax year 2020 to 2021, and it looks like these 2 parcels are not included in your 2021 data set. Are we getting the tax revenue? Can you confirm that? And making sure that we're getting all the tax revenue that we're entitled to.
Any other questions or comments for Cody?
It's just a lot of changes for a fiscal year that's ending so quickly. So is it more so to make the accounting easier in the next?
Exactly.
It's
yeah.
not like all of these changes happened 10 months into the.
Yeah, exactly. It's more we're shoring up our budget and making it more true to what we're actually spending.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's good.
Thank you, Cody. All right, this item is now open for public hearing. If there's anybody who would like to make public comment on this, please step forward. Okay.
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any against? All right, public hearing is closed. Moving on to our consent agenda. We've got 2 items. Consider minutes of, make sure I'm in the right packet here, yes. Consider minutes of April 5th, 2022, and item B, set date and time, May 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. for a public hearing to receive public comments and consider adoption of the redevelopment agency of Midville City tentative fiscal year 2023 tentative budget beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Shelley, will you call roll?
Councilmember Robinson?
Aye.
Or board member, sorry. Brown?
Yep.
Gettle?
Yes.
Glover?
Aye.
Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Moving into action items. Item A, consider resolution number 2022-02 RDA entering into a mural festival agreement with Elias and Brigham LLC, a Utah limited liability company, all caps art gallery. Maggie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and RDA Board. As you know, we entered into an agreement with All Caps quite a few months ago before I started to organize a mural festival here on Main Street. And so far that planning is going very well. We have 23 potential walls for the mural festival. 15 people have confirmed, 15 businesses and building owners. And we have 1 signed agreement that took place at our Business Alliance meeting on, when was that? That was this week, Thursday. So now I'm presenting to you today this action item for us, Midvale City, to enter into a mural festival agreement with All Caps, essentially just giving them permission to paint a mural on the art house wall, on the east wall of the art house, and also a, actually I have pictures. I'm trying to describe to you something that I could probably do better with pictures. So, yes, the art house is highlighted in red, and they would like to paint the east wall, which I have pictures of in just a second. And then there's a wall right there in the parking lot highlighted in red that is also one that can be painted with a mural for the festival. And here is the back of the art house wall. It would just be the brick on the left side. And then this is the wall in the parking lot. These are both, of course, city-owned buildings. So we also need to enter into an agreement to give them permission to paint on these walls.
Looks like it's been painted on quite a few times.
Yeah, with a mural, I mean, imagine. Any questions?
Really quickly, Maggie, you've presented in front of the RDA board before. Is that correct? Was this your first time?
Yes. Second time.
Second time. Okay, that's what I thought. I wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
It was my fault. I couldn't remember if this was your first or second time, and I was like, if it's the first, maybe we need to introduce you and all that kind of stuff. But that's why.
If need to what?
If we needed to introduce you is why I was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. I was, yeah, second time.
Mayor was good enough to look at.
You weren't here. You were on Zoom last time, so.
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
Does the wall need to be repaired in any way? Looks like I think we have some cracks we're dealing with. Does that impact the mural at all, or?
It could. So there is a plan to prep all the walls, and they have techniques to do that. So I'm not exactly sure how they would prep this wall, but there are plans to prep the walls.
And I assume we don't have plans in the relatively short term to remove said wall?
I don't know.
Not if there's a mural.
Oh, sorry. What was the question?
The way government works, we'll take it down the next day.
Is there, I've mentioned before, you know how we normally have ribbon cutting ceremonies, and I'm not the most artistic person in the world, but since these are city-owned buildings, is there a way that you could, or Cody or Nate, someone could coordinate a paint ceremony where like the mayor or some of us on council get to paint a brick or something ceremonially? I don't know. Again, I'm not, if they tell me what brick to paint, what specific color, I can do that.
Yeah.
But I think that would just be an interesting way to like show that the city is very much heavily favoring this type of program.
I agree with you. So the mural festival's on June 18th, Saturday, June 18th, and we haven't discussed like official ways for all of you to participate and like, you know, ribbon cut or something like that, but we would definitely want to talk about that. So thank you. That's a great suggestion. We'll make something happen.
And I did mention it to them, and they seem to be very excited about that idea as well. So I think if we can just work out the details and get something official.
Yeah, they're super creative too. I'm sure, you know, they'd have some really cool ideas.
Are we gonna get a whale?
You never know. Maybe not one with a 40-foot wingspan that would cross the road, but.
I'm thinking 60.
We could have a whale, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Maggie? With that, is there a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution number 2022-03 RDA and enter into the mural festival participation agreement permitting murals to be painted on the east-facing wall of the art house and the west-facing wall at the back of the parking lot behind the art house.
Second.
It's very specific.
If I'm not
Oh,
mistaken,
hold
Councilmember
on.
Gettle gave the wrong resolution number.
Well, that's what it said. I mean, I read. Oh, what should it be?
2022-02 RDA, and you
Oh.
said 03, which is the next one.
Okay, I'm getting more advice here. Okay, I move that we suspend the rules and adopt resolution number 2022-02 RDA and enter into the mural festival participation agreement permitting murals to be painted on the east-facing wall of the art house and the west-facing wall at the back of the parking lot behind the art house.
Second.
So I do have a question, because the resolution in our packet does have a 3. So we need to correct that?
In the packet?
Yeah.
Yes, as long as the correct resolution though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need to include that in the motion that we?
So we amended the packet? Yeah, let's do that.
Should I try for a third time?
Just do a hybrid of the last two and you
Oh
have it
my
right.
goodness.
That's what we're doing.
I think this is a sign, maybe we shouldn't do it. Yeah, Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules and adopt amended resolution number 2022-02 RDA and enter into the mural festival participation agreement permitting murals to be painted on the east-facing wall of the art house and the west-facing wall at the back of the parking lot behind the art house.
Is that good enough, council? All right.
I will not read it a fourth time.
Okay, sorry, I heard a
I gave
motion.
the second.
Councilmember Glover gave the second. All right, any more discussion on that? Shelley, will you call roll?
Yes, Board Member Gettle.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Berry.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Moving on to item B, consider resolution number 2022-03 RDA, approving the funding recommendation from the Main Street Public Art Programs Design Advisory Board. Cody.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. So yeah, quick overview. We have the Main Street Public Art Program. We budgeted $15,000 for it for this fiscal year. We've spent all of that except $5,500, so about 2/3 of it. And we have a funding opportunity for that last third. The Design Advisory Board met and made a recommendation to fund this mural. Its location would be at 7607 South Main Street. And that's where Dark Arts moved to. It's a tattoo studio. And the artist would be Cyril, who's a very widely known muralist in Utah, especially in Salt Lake. And the examples you can see on the left is the huge mural. If you're at the North Temple Station, train station, you can see that on the backside of a multifamily development. And there's also a polar bear. And then the proposed content would be something kind of out of like Greek mythology is going to be the content. They would be less nudity that is depicted there. It would conform with the city's guidelines. And the style would be kind of like a statuesque, but there's also a little bit of cracks in the side of the building, so that would be also incorporated into the style of the mural. And so you have that that mural of the girl's face with some cracks in it. And so that would be kind of the look and the feel and the style of the mural. And so the recommendation from the Design Advisory Board is to support the funding of this mural at $5,500, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Could we make a motion for more nudity if we wanted?
I know it's not in here, and we talked about it coming from a different funding source, but is lighting still a part of the plan?
Yeah, we're going to be discussing lighting with them as well.
Okay.
Discussion, questions for Cody?
This requires suspending the rules.
It does.
Okay.
I have a question. So with that, where, you know, your disclaimer, who's gonna look at it before to say, okay, yeah, that fits the city's thing?
Yeah, so we'll bring it back to the design advisory board and approve final concepts before anything goes up that.
The artist supposedly sort of goes with it as he's going though, right?
Yeah.
So he needs to know the standards for sure.
Mhm.
You know, because if he adds any elements or something, you know.
Yeah, but any more finalized concepts we'll bring to you.
I mean, this
The
one's in
design
downtown
advisory
Salt
board.
Lake, so he obviously understands,
Yeah.
you know.
I just didn't see in the resolution anything that the advisory board had to approve the final plan, so.
Out of curiosity, who's on the design advisory board?
It's me, Wade Walker. Are you officially on it?
Yeah, just a member from the RDA, a member from the, representing the planning, and then a community representative.
Okay.
And a community property owner, right? Do we have that too?
There's just community is the community representative. And so we've tapped Ashley Thomas from Echelon Tattoo for the Main Street Design Advisory Board.
So there's 3?
No, I'm saying one person is that, the community representative.
And the,
And Wade Walker's on it from the community.
oh, got it. He's the community
He's-
property owner. Okay.
Yeah, he was the arts
So
representative.
there's 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
I'm confused.
Yep.
Will you be able to show us, you know, just not that we vote or approve or what, I would like to just see what is gonna be there before it goes up, if that's possible. You know,
Yeah,
'cause a
if
lot of
that's
times
possible,
people
I'll
ask what
talk to
you're-
the artists and Mitch as well.
And two, I don't know if it's something we can push out on social media as
He's
well.
actually fairly active. The artist is on Instagram, so like he posts as he's working and stuff goes live. So if you want to check him out, it's a great place to see his work.
Cool.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules to pass resolution number 2022-03 RDA and adopt the public art funding recommendation from the Main Street Public Art Programs Design Advisory Board.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Shelley, will you call roll?
Board Member Glover?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Brown?
Yes.
Hale?
Yes.
Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, motion and second. All those in favor?
Yes.
All right, any against?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Do we need a break before going into the Midville
No.
City Municipal?
No,
Let's just do it.
All
it's a
right,
consent agenda.
It should take 2 seconds.
we'll, do one. Okay, it is 9:57 and Midville City Municipal Building Authority is in session. Welcome. This is my first Midville City Municipal Building Authority meeting. Pretty exciting.
Welcome.
Shelley, will you call roll?
Yes. Board Member Hale?
Here.
Barry?
Here.
Brown?
Yep.
Robinson?
Yeah.
Glover?
Here.
Thank you. This portion of the agenda is for public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for public hearing on the agenda may address the Midville City Municipal Building Authority. It says Midville. By stepping up to the microphone now and giving his or her name. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none, we have the consent agenda tonight with 2 items. The first item is consider minutes of December 7th, 2021, and item B, set date and time, May 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. for public hearing to consider the adoption of the Midville City Municipal Building Authority fiscal year 2023 tentative budget beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Shelley, will you call roll?
Board Member Brown?
Yep.
Hale?
Yes.
Glover?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Okay, that passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks,
Yes.
everyone.